see what the process is going to be, especially right now with the situation with the courts and so forth. They might cite them and let them leave, but I don't know at this point, to be honest with you, because I haven't had a chance to talk to anybody about that.
Christina?
But
We're looking at an aerial shot
live
right
in
now.
downtown Los Angeles.
Yeah, we're looking at an
if you
aerial.
look at the aerial shot, and you might be able to see, because they actually were incredibly effective at dispersing the crowd into two segments. There are the people here in front of City Hall at Spring Street, but towards Pershing Square, a second group separated and went that way. And that is where the rest of the units followed them and were planning on making some arrests. Those people moved away when the order to disperse came in, but they also went towards Pershing Square, and that's when we started hearing some of the M80s. So there was also a scene going on there. Although at one point they were actually letting them go past a scene that there was an investigation on a shooting, which may have had nothing to do with protesters. So it was kind of weird. But again, the main scene right now in downtown Los Angeles is the arrest going on, and that's, I believe, number 38, of people in front of City Hall. Peaceful arrest, but arrest nevertheless for a group of protesters who would not leave. I'm Christina Gonzalez, live in downtown Los Angeles. Hopefully we'll be able to bring you later what these people said before they were arrested. Back to you.
All right, we go from the ground to the air. Tevin Takumi is in Skyfox.
Yeah, we've been watching this group here that's been walking through downtown Los Angeles. Right now they're turning, looks like they're turning northbound on Los Angeles Street from 9th. They've kind of been zigzagging around here. LAPD is trying to get a lot of their mobile force units into position and try to box them in and then arrest all of them they're talking about because they're violating that curfew. The problem they're having too is that they have a bunch of cars that are also following them as well. So they need to try to be able to get their mobile force units in there and try to cut off those cars that have been following this group around here. But you can see the airships above here. They're trying to get their units in position here. They also were keeping an eye on that crime scene that was off to the west of here that they once again were kind of protecting. That was on Hill and Olympic down below there for that fatal shooting that happened down there. But right now they are just following this crowd. They're trying to get their mobile field units into position here so they can take, like they're saying we want to take all of these people into custody.
All right, Kevin, thank you. As we watch this picture from your aerial downtown, we check in with Phil Schuman, who's now in a vehicle checking out what's happening in Santa Monica. Phil, you brought us such amazing coverage there in Santa Monica. How is it looking tonight, almost 9 p.m. here?
Well, it's very tense. We're rolling on Lincoln at Santa Monica. Right in front of us, a Sheriff's Department mobile field force. They're moving aggressively in conjunction with the LAPD and Santa Monica PD and making arrests. We've seen them chasing people who could be looters across the street. We just saw them take several people into custody at a gas station at Lincoln and Santa Monica. And the sounds of sirens and helicopters still pretty much fill the air here in Santa Monica. We thought things had calmed down a little bit when they started making those arrests as darkness fell a couple of hours ago, but now things have escalated again with just this huge amount of law enforcement presence after dark.
Wow. What an eerie night here in our community. Another day of protests that have spread now from just really to so many different parts of our community. Santa Monica, Long Beach. Last night it was so volatile in the Fairfax district. And then also in Santa Ana, where we haven't checked in a while. So Rick Lozano's there on the ground. Rick, what is the scene there in Santa Ana, also under curfew?
Well, let's begin by saying that the crowds have dwindled considerably since our last report earlier this afternoon. We're at the corner of Flower and Santa Ana Boulevard. There is a curfew that will go into effect here in Santa Ana starting at 10 o'clock tonight and run until 5:30 tomorrow. Now, this area was the scene of some ugly behavior on the part of protesters last night. A lot of damage to businesses, a lot of looting that went on. There were 5 arrests as a result of all of that. The scene was replete with protesters hurling rocks and throwing fireworks at police, and police, of course, responding with tear gas and rubber bullets. That was last night. So far, none of that has happened tonight, as protesters have behaved themselves in a very respectful manner, and police in kind have returned the favor. Now, as we look over to our right, you can see a large skirmish line here formed by some 30 to 40 Santa Ana police officers, and in the extreme background there are more officers waiting in case they are needed. This was a much larger gathering earlier this afternoon. In fact, as they marched through the streets of Santa Ana, I'm guesstimating there could have been as many as 2,000 protesters involved in that march. Now, at this location, and we're not certain whether there could be other locations throughout Santa Ana, but at this location, the crowd is down to maybe 150 or 200 protesters. Again, they have behaved themselves very peacefully, very respectfully, and they're receiving the same kind of treatment from Santa Ana police. So far, no misbehavior here to report. Again, the curfew goes into effect at 10 p.m., so we'll see what happens when the clock strikes that hour. For now, we're live in Santa Ana. We're going to send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Rick Lozano, thank you much in Santa Ana. We are joined now by phone as we look at downtown L.A. by City Councilman Joe Buscaino. And Councilman, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Christine, Alex.
All right, so I wanted to ask you your perspective as a councilman and also a former LAPD officer. What are your thoughts as you look right now at downtown LA?
Just disheartening. As you know, Christine, and you and I have done some great work with LAPD in the past. I mean, just by viewing what I see here on Fox 11, it's safe to say we need more National Guardsmen to protect this region, and potentially even look at a 24-hour stay-at-home curfew just to take a breather.
What do you think?
It's just mind-boggling just to see this. So much anger and frustration. I don't know. It's talking more of. Are we talking about a race war here or a class war? I mean, the peaceful protests are being taken over in our region by violent criminals, and they need to be held accountable. The time of citing and releasing looters should be over with. We need to book them and keep them in jail.
Can that happen? I mean, can that change be made immediately? What's the process? Because I think there's a lot of people watching that agree with you saying that. We've been hearing that over and over again from law enforcement, their frustration with that policy.
I believe based on the COVID-19, our county jails, right now we're not taking any folks in on misdemeanor offenses. But, I mean, if we're reopening our economy and opening restaurants and businesses, I think we ought to start opening our county jails moving forward to keep these folks accountable. Because as of right now, clearly, even what Phil Schuman reported, that a looter was just given a ticket. I mean, so there's just no accountability. We'll continue to see this unless there's accountability. At the same time, we need to take a step back and talk about ways to have these dialogues between these folks. But clearly, you know, in Watts yesterday, I'm really proud of my South Los Angeles communities. We had a peaceful march in Watts yesterday. Today at Trump National Golf Course, we had a peaceful protest. So what we're seeing is clearly different ways of diverse opinions on these injustices. We're seeing damages in the millions, what we saw last night on Fairfax and Melrose. So it's important for us to continue to have this reestablishment and open dialogue and bring peace to our city and our region.
And we're looking live at pictures of Long Beach right now, which is right near your district, of course, in San Pedro.
Yep.
What do you think is
Alex,
going on?
Let me just say this. You and I, we've been at the Watts Bears
Yep.
and just watched the community-based policing relationships. We've come such a long way. Specifically in Watts and South Los Angeles, and as a police officer, senior lead officer, we've seen the amount of work that we've come a long way. You know, when the fact that we have a police department now that is working hard, and it tears my heart to see rocks and bottles and the graffiti of folks having a hard time and just terrorizing our cops. I'm just frustrated. Last night, 10 cop cars burned, 70 cop cars damaged. At which point do we say enough is enough?
Well, and for people that don't know, the Watts Bears, which are now known as the Watts Rams, was a program that was brought into place after the LA riots to help enhance community relations. So these are LAPD officers that are coaches of a youth football team, to get to know them, to train strong young men from early on. They're a very successful program. The LA Rams have now adopted them, and you and I both have been volunteering with them for years and worked together on that. What is going on, though? What do you think societally has failed to lead to this point? Because is it a failure of governmental leadership? Is it a failure of moral leadership in the churches and religious? Is it a failure of parenting? I mean, because we are now at a point, is it a failure of capitalism, income inequality? We are at a point where there are a significant number of people that feel that this is not only okay, they're proud of it. They're celebrating it. They're posting it on social media. They don't care who sees them on camera. How did we get here?
It's disruption. You know, and the mayor pointed it out earlier today, a lot of folks have been pent up because of the COVID-19 pandemic. 30 million people are unemployed. We need to acknowledge that. But by these actions, folks need to get back to work tomorrow. And by the looting, they're not going to be able to get back to work and put food on their tables. So we go back to back to Minneapolis, what took place with George. And as a police officer, those officers all need to be booked and be held accountable. We know that. I was not ever trained in the academy to do what that officer did to George. Bottom line.
We are looking right now at a business that has been just looted in Santa Monica. This is inside video of all of the damage. Let me ask you this. As we one day get through this chapter, this looting, this rioting, how long does it take to pick up and clean up? Where do you start to rebuild?
Well, we took a lesson in 1992 with the uprising in South Los Angeles. And the fact that now as city leaders, state leaders, we definitely need to turn to our federal government to really get our economy back and running. But we also need to talk about the fact that, you know, we had days of dialogue, and something that's been in my DNA as a senior lead officer, as you both know, the importance of showing the heart behind the badge, and we've come a long way again. There's a difference here, guys, between anarchism and advocacy.
Right.
I mean, are we advocating for social justice, or are we going to just cause havoc and hell in our region? And there's a difference here.
I just want to ask real quickly as we wrap things up, how are we going to be able to afford this? I mean, we were facing a just budget free-fall disaster because of COVID-19, and now this.
Right.
Where is the money going to come from to even pick up the pieces?
Well, again, in a natural disaster uprising such as this, what we've seen is no different than, you know, leaning on the relief from FEMA and the federal government to make up for these significant losses for our businesses. I mean, my heart pours for these small businesses. These are the backbone of our economy, of our small businesses, and these knucklehead thugs are coming in and out of these, damaging these businesses. It's unacceptable. Let's hold these people accountable. Let's book them and put them in jail and keep them, because right now all we're doing is citing and releasing them.
All right, Councilman Joe Buscaino, LA City. We know how much that you do love the city and being a part of the city. I thank you so much for taking time to call in. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me.
It looks like things are heating up a little bit in downtown LA.
Yeah, it looks like people are there on the move, and you often see something like that when police are moving in. All right, Kevin Takumi, go ahead and tell us what you see here over downtown LA.
Yeah, we're tracking this group that's going through downtown LA. You know, the LAPD has been trying to get their ground units into position, and the air unit's been trying to guide those ground units into it. but they just haven't been able to get ahead of them here. The mobile field units are kind of not getting there fast enough to the intersections that the air unit's going to. So they start running, and right now we're on 8th or 7th, coming up to San Pedro here. So you know, right now they're running. Whenever a black and white shows up, they start running. So they're trying to move them. You know, they're trying to move their units ahead to get into there, but we're getting into 6th and San Pedro, so he's trying to get units in there, but it's too late. But they're starting to get into the Skid Row area here, and the crowd, they haven't been breaking anything or doing things like that. They've just been moving around really fast. Just whenever a black and white shows up, they start running in different directions. But this is the main group. It's about 150 to 200 people, and moving together. And there's actually about 10 cars that are following with the group. They've been hanging out the windows here, and just kind of following with the group here, and kind of pushing them, egging them on and whatnot. So, and doing donuts in the street as they go along. But now they're going to turn northbound on San Pedro here, and once again the air unit's trying to get some ground units into the north of them. They want to pinch this off, and they want to block them in, and get them and try to take them into custody.
I'm going to cut you off, my friend. We're going to go back to Susan Hirasuna in Long Beach, where there's breaking developments. Susan.
All right, so we are back at the intersection where we were at previously, where you saw all those people flood into the Gene Machine, and you see how the situation has changed drastically, dramatically, thanks to the fact that there is now police presence here. And what's really remarkable is that while we were watching people make entry into the Ross store, and you were talking to the chief of police, now we've seen an unmarked car go by that we believe is the chief of police, who's getting here a little on the late side, frankly. But he may be finally seeing what you were talking about that whole time, Alex. And you see here quite the show of force, and yet all those people that were here previously when we were here, they're all now gone. We had to go back to the microvan in order to get a battery so that we could stay up and live for you. But you can see now that it is a completely different scene. We were told to turn back multiple times. We kept telling them we're media, and we have a right to come here and document what is going on, especially since this is such a complete different scene than the way it was just, an hour or so ago, when it just seemed like beyond lawlessness, where people had no problems at all coming into this area, running into the store, and coming out with armful of stuff. And what's odd is that you can see all of the debris that's left over from that. I see a single shoe in the middle of the street, middle of the sidewalk, and plenty of boxes and bags and things that are apparently empty and not really just more evidence that people were here, and they just ransacked and took stuff out of the boxes and then tucked them away or threw them into cars and got away. Meantime, we still hear that sound of shattering glass. So just standing on the corner, I hear the sound of someone knocking on something, and I'm thinking, and I'm looking at that person, and the window was already broken, and what was inside was a little bit of, like baby chairs. So, I mean, I had no idea why he decided that he wanted to do that. Okay, so we are being told that we need to back up a little bit away from the police officers. They're being fairly polite about this, but it's interesting. It's odd because some sergeants will tell me you can be here, and others will say no, back up. And I actually had two police officers kind of in an argument on what was the right of the media to be where we were. One sergeant, one commanding officer said, yeah, they can be here, and then another with the same rank said, no, she cannot. So again, back to what we were saying, a couple of hours ago before the sun went down, sometimes when they know you, the first sergeant knew me and said, Susan, I want you to stand right here. And then the next guy said, no, you can't be here at all. So it was a bit confusing, to say the least. So,
Susan, I want to ask you a question about the crowds that were there just a short time ago, and now you see this, the calm. My question is, do they just move to another neighborhood, another shopping area, or do they go home? And you may not even have the answer, but that's my concern here, that you see the calm and quiet here, but where did the crowd go?
Well, what I observed, so yeah, you're right. I don't 100% know for sure, but what I observed is that every once in a while there'd be this big exodus, like, you know, you come across a flock of birds and they take off. And it was something like that, where all of a sudden someone must have said something and they all come running out of the store. Now, if they saw a police vehicle, at one point we saw a police vehicle in the distance, but they never made entry to this location where we are right now. And but that was enough to sort of quell some of the looting. But then because that vehicle didn't move, then people went back to it. People went back into the Gene Machine. People continued down and towards the Ross, and we witnessed them breaking the window, the upper window, and then they realized that it was going to be fairly easy to get in. It just took a matter of time, and so then they kept kicking and kicking the plywood until they were finally able to make entry. We watched people go in, we watched people come out with bags, luggage of stuff, and then across the street they went into a eyebrow threading salon. So I'm going to send it back to you, but yeah, the short answer is people, it's like herding cats. We don't know for sure where they went.
All right, it is now 9 o'clock, and welcome to a special edition of the Fox 11 News.
A split tonight in Southern California. Peaceful protests in many areas and violent chaos in others. From Santa Monica to Long Beach. Hundreds of looters with arms full and no officers in sight. Some protesters stepping in, risking their own lives to stop the violence. And in downtown LA, more protests and this very close call with a cruiser.
With images of a nation coming apart, we must not let them win.
We're covering all of the events from LA County to the OC. Our special coverage begins right now. It is now 9 p.m. in the city of Los Angeles. It is a very difficult night across our communities, from Long Beach to Santa Ana to Santa Monica to downtown LA. We have been covering people who've been trying to protest peacefully, and also a lot of rioting and looting tonight. Alex.
Good evening. I'm Alex Michelson with Christine Devine. We remain on the air as we follow this dramatic news night. Los Angeles County curfew now in effect. We have seen widespread looting throughout LA County. Some of the areas that have seen it the worst are Santa Monica and Long Beach. We have seen arrests being made in downtown LA. We've also seen arrests being made in Santa Monica to try to enforce that curfew. We have not seen widespread arrests of these looters, at least not yet. The National Guard is here in Southern California. We have seen National Guard tanks now in the streets in Santa Monica, which have helped in some ways to quell that situation there. And we should also point out that we have had peaceful protests throughout the day that continue to raise legitimate questions about systemic racism and income inequality that are at the root of the George Floyd story. But at the same time, we have seen lawlessness and anarchy on the streets of Southern California tonight, and that continues. For whatever reason, there is a significant group of people that feel like it is okay to break into whatever store that they can find and take somebody else's property as their own. We are seeing it over and over again. What's been especially upsetting throughout this night, Christine, is how many people seem to be proud of the fact that they are able to do this.
Well, we've gotten some pretty good interviews from our reporter Susan Hirosuna on the scene, where we said, please ask some of these people who are looting right in front of you, why are they looting? Why are they going into these businesses? And she got some answers that shed some light on their perspective. We are live over downtown LA right now. The question is, how does tonight play out? What happens now that it is dark outside? Do we see what we saw last night? Let's pray not. It was a difficult, painful, devastating, heartbreaking night in the Fairfax district of Los Angeles. So Kevin Dakumi, you're overhead in Skyfox in downtown LA. Tell us what you're seeing here.
Yeah, LAPD trying to round up this group here of about 200 people that were walking in, marching through downtown LA. And once it got to 8 o'clock and the curfew took effect, they started trying to move in and try to arrest this group. Now they've been running through here as they've been trying to get their mobile foil forces in to try to arrest all these. They're also trying to get a hold of these cars here that are following with the group. They've been making donuts in the intersections and almost hitting a few other cars that were passing through the area. So they're trying to contain this situation as best they can. This is the only group that is walking around through downtown LA at this point. As the latest over at Skybox, we'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Kevin, thank you. You know, every time there is darkness, Christine, it makes things seem more intense and sort of amplifies the seriousness of this moment and the danger of this moment for certain people. I'm sorry, guys, where are we heading next? We're going soon to Susan Hirasuna, who is in Long Beach right now. Susan.
Ellis, we're back on that corner, Wade and 4th Street, where we brought you all of that looting at the Gene Machine store. And what is left over is kind of remarkable. Now that the police are here, there's no people here at all, no residents or looters or protesters or whatever were filling the streets earlier. But it's so odd to see what is left over. There are so many of these things like empty shoe boxes that are just strewn about and all kinds of odd merchandise, like right here. Carlos, if you can come back to me. So apparently perhaps a CVS or a Rite Aid. So there's a bottle of biotin. There's a bunch of supplements on the ground. There's a little pair of shoes over there. Not quite sure if those are the new shoes that got stolen and then somebody realized they were much too small that they could ever wear them. But this place is just a mess. And we're just talking about the intersection outside the store. Imagine what it looks like inside the store. Now, I'm recognizing that these are the same police officers that were at the intersection that we were at initially with the protesters that were being fairly peaceful. Meantime, you see here, we've got some people heading towards the police. They're being told to turn back around. And so it looks as if they're going away. But these are the same police that were at the intersection of 3rd and Pacific. And now they are at this location, keeping this location quiet and safe. But it is, again, another surreal scene here. Alex, Christine?
Susan, we're going to interrupt you. We're going to go to a press conference that is happening right now. This is in the city of Santa Monica.
I want to personally thank those neighboring cities and communities that stepped up to support us, and our first responders here who are caring for this community as they do every day. To our Santa Monica community, I want to say that we are here for you. We are restoring this community to be the one that you know and love, and we will continue to do this and return it to the compassionate and just city that respects everyone and all of our residents and businesses. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem O'Day. I would now like to welcome up our police chief, Cynthia Renaud, for an update from our Santa Monica Police Department.
Good evening, everyone. Again, I apologize, a little awkward, empty room here. So I'll do my best to deliver some information and answer what I think your questions are. So we did have National Guard response and arrival shortly before 8 p.m., and that has been a dramatic impact here in the city. They are securing the areas that we have already secured and taken care of, which is allowing us to move.
They were marching up and down Ocean Boulevard, across Alamitos Beach, throughout the downtown, many with signs meeting this moment of anxiety, of injustice, and marching, of course, for George Floyd and the killing that happened that we're all in such pain over. But within a few hours, that peaceful protest turned into something much deadlier, much more violent, and much more dark. What is occurring right now in our city is both heartbreaking and should anger us. The violence, the looting, that is not justice, and that is not peaceful protest. What is happening goes against the values of one of the most diverse cities in our country. I love Long Beach. We love Long Beach. And those that are perpetrating against our city and causing crime and destruction should be ashamed of themselves. I want to let everybody know that we have here tonight, I've got our chief of police, our fire chief, and our city manager who are going to be giving some updates on what we're doing as we go into this evening tonight. We know that the curfew is in effect and people should be at home. You are safest at home, so please, please stay home. What I saw tonight and the type of vandalizing that was happening was unacceptable. I saw the Crest Market, a small mom and pop grocery store owned by two hardworking immigrants that came to this country, that put everything they had into their small bodega and market. I saw that being attacked tonight. Most of these businesses that you're seeing across the city are mom and pop small businesses. People need to focus on what's important, and it's keeping everyone safe tonight. I want to let everybody know that earlier today, we have been working all day, not just with other agencies, but as also the state, to ensure the safety of our community. I had a conversation earlier today with Governor Newsom. The National Guard has been deployed and they are on their way to the city of Long Beach. And we have gone through the process, which happened earlier, of asking for the Guard's support. The Guard, as you know, has a statewide mission. And it's not only in Long Beach where they are currently doing their work. We also not only have our entire Long Beach Police Department and our fire department out trying to take care of the city, but also have other agencies and other policing agencies here as well assisting us. And to all of them tonight, we say thank you, and please also stay safe. It's important for folks to know that right now people need to take care of each other. And we have a lot of important information to share with you this evening. I want to begin by asking our city manager to say a few words, and also then our chief of police, Robert Luna. Tom Modica, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this afternoon, under the power of the city charter as city manager, I declared an emergency, and we have also instituted an emergency curfew as of 8 p.m. tonight, and that is currently in effect all the way through 5 a.m. in the morning. We will reevaluate that curfew and extend it if needed. While the city supports peaceful assembly and free speech, we cannot tolerate destruction of property, looting, or violence. For the safety of everyone in the community, including our first responders, business owners, protesters, and residents, we've enacted this curfew to keep everyone safe. This is an extraordinary time in our city. Let me take a moment just to say, I know you are all frustrated. We are all frustrated. We are angry and heartbroken over the tragic death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. But we urge everybody in the city and the entire region to abide by the curfew and to remain calm. We do know, as the mayor mentioned, that most people who assembled in Long Beach today did so peacefully and were airing their grievances in their First Amendment right, and we thank you for that. So while our Long Beach community is known for its willingness to support each other, especially during this challenging times, we challenge you to do exactly that. We've been through very tough times in the past. We will get through this one as well. Let's work together and make Long Beach safer for everyone. And so we have all of our emergency systems deployed. We have everyone out there working. City crews are together working as hard as we possibly can, but it is an incredibly tough situation. I'd like to bring up our police chief, Robert Luna, to talk through what is going on out there and the process as well for asking for assistance, which we have been doing since earlier today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Mr. City Manager. Today's a sad day here in our city. To see what's occurring around us, it is heartbreaking. But I want to tell everybody that lives in the city that we have an extensive amount of police officers out in our community, and we are bouncing around from call to call. We're trying to handle as much as we possibly can. Deploying officers, like I said earlier, all over the city, but specifically in our downtown area. Please know that as we as a police department saw a lot of the civil unrest around the country, we as a police department started to prepare. We wanted to make sure that our training, our equipment, that our staffing was going to be up for whatever came our way. We were standing ready. In the last couple of days, as a matter of fact, yesterday, we augmented our staffing. We had more staffing in. We actually sent several dozen officers to the city of Los Angeles to assist them because Long Beach wasn't impacted. But tonight, we were impacted. Typically on a Sunday, we have our normal staffing. And because we had a scheduled protest at our police station tonight, we actually quadrupled the number of officers in the city, specifically around the downtown area. As the mayor stated earlier, we had several thousand protesters that showed up to the front of the police station and then marched around the downtown area. As they marched, they were joined by hundreds and then eventually became thousands of other people. Within that hour, our officers, our command staff that was running this event, made a decision to contact the Emergency Operations Bureau from LA County Sheriffs, and we immediately asked for mutual aid. What that basically means is that we summons police officers from around the county, the region, and the state. Immediately, we were sent several dozen officers to us, and right away we ended up asking for more officers. Eventually, we had what we call multiple platoons. I'm not going to get into specific numbers, but several hundred additional officers to augment the hundreds of Long Beach officers we had here. As the protests grew, and they grew violent, unfortunately, we continue to make requests for resources. Once the county said the resources were expended, that's when the National Guard was requested. That request went in here in the last hour, and we were advised that the National Guard is en route to Long Beach to assist the Long Beach Police Department and all the other officers who are currently assisting us. And as I talk about these other officers, these are officers that are coming from different communities, so I really want to reach out and say thank you for helping our city. You've really helped us a lot. I know we're seeing some very disturbing images on TV, and to be honest with you, I hope they disturb you. They're very much disturbing us. We've gotten inquiries from the media. How could you let this looting occur? It's irritating to watch people go into stores and basically break into them and steal the items. Yes, steal. They're not theirs. There's no reason to do this. And this is what's sad. When we planned for this protest today, we planned for a large group of protesters to come here and express their First Amendment rights and express their anger in a positive way with the loss of life with George Floyd. I've written about this earlier. I'm upset about it. And here's the sad part. Every police officer at the Long Beach Police Department that I've spoken to is also very upset about the way that George Floyd died. And we're out here trying to facilitate a peaceful protest, and I'm going to say about 80% of the people are doing the right thing. Blocking the streets, signs, yelling, that's okay. What's not okay is you had individuals who came into the group and started to vandalize vehicles, throw items at police officers, and they're the ones who started breaking away, went down into our Pike area and started to break windows and start looting stores. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not the way you make a point. How does that, how do we celebrate the life of George Floyd or even talk about his tragic death when you have people committing crimes? That's not what we're going to tolerate. And as the evening goes on, we are going to get control of our streets. People are going to go to jail. We're going to enforce this curfew that'll go on until this event is over. and we will bring peace back to Long Beach. I promise you that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my partner, the fire chief. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Manager. I just wanted to take a moment to let you know exactly what we're doing in the fire department. We've received a number of questions about how we prepare for something like this. And first and foremost, I can tell you that the tragic incident that occurred in Minneapolis many days ago has affected us all adversely, and has affected our city, obviously, and it's still going on around us. What I want to portray to you is the pride that I have in the men and women of the Long Beach Fire Department and the police department and everybody that's here that's responding to the city's needs. They are coming here of their own volition. They haven't hesitated. They haven't faltered. And regardless of what's going on around them, they are responding, and they're here for you. As soon as the incident occurred in Minneapolis, we start to make our observations and try to become aware of exactly what's going on. And I can tell you, I've been in close discussions with the police chief, the city manager, and getting prepared for just this type of situation. We've had our command staffs together. We've been working very collaboratively together throughout the procedure. And in fact, we are over at headquarters right now working together as we speak. Along the same lines with Chief Luna, I can tell you that mutual aid has come to our assistance again today. Unfortunately for us, we have wildfires that occur each and every year throughout the year, and so we are well versed in using mutual aid. At a certain point this evening, we began to get overwhelmed with the amount of incidents that we had coming in. We reached out to the region. They sent us a strike team from LA County. That strike team is still working with us downtown. They'll be with us here tonight until the situation alleviates itself and they can respond back into their own district. But for now, extremely thankful not only to the LA County Fire Department, but to everybody else that has reached out to us to offer their assistance. I can't tell you how proud I am of everyone in the community, all the residents, all the visitors that are coming here to the city, and how they're responding to this and the resiliency. I know that we will get through this. I've been here for 34 years, and I've seen quite a bit in that career, and I've seen the resilience of the residents of the city of Long Beach, and I know that we will rebound. Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And again, I want to thank the incredible men and women of both the Long Beach Fire Department and the Long Beach Police Department who are doing a great job out there under very difficult circumstances. Before we close, I just want to say two other things. The first is just know that the entire city leadership, our community leadership, is working on this issue, and understanding and knowing that our city is going to recover from this. But right now we are ensuring the safety of everyone. And so we need your help. Every member of the Long Beach City Council, our community leaders, our faith group, we're imploring and asking you tonight to please stay home. And for all those that are looting and that are causing destruction in our city, you are not welcome in our community. You are not welcome in Long Beach. Long Beach is a diverse, strong, and beautiful place with good people who have always strived for justice and to make our community better. And so I want to concur and agree with what the chief said. We will get control of the situation. The police department, our partners in the police department, and the National Guard, and our partners at the state are all working together to ensure the safety of our city. And so with that, we will go ahead and take some questions from the press. But to everyone else watching tonight from Long Beach, hang tight, and we are going to work to make sure that we get this resolved and stay safe. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first question is from Jeremiah from the Long Beach Post. Go ahead, Jeremiah.
Hi, Chief Luna and Mayor Garcia. Do you have a sense yet of the scope of the damage and injuries? How many places have been looted? How many police officers or protesters or looters have been injured or arrested? And Chief Luna, one thing specifically you said You said you were prepared for a large protest, but why wasn't there the expectation that this would turn into exactly what we saw tonight with looting, especially after what we saw in LA?
So I'll start. So we're obviously assessing the damage right now. I think what you're seeing from the images on TV, what you're seeing certainly on social media is significant damage to a lot of really great mom and pop, many mostly minority-owned businesses across our city. That assessment will continue. And of course, where the determination of the arrests and what's happening, we'll be able to have a much bigger picture, I think, probably by tomorrow. Right now, we're just trying to tamp down what is happening right now. And I will add, and the chief can add to this, but absolutely the city was preparing for a worst case scenario. We've been preparing for that for days. But what we were hoping for was a peaceful protest. And that's something that, in my opinion, turned very violent, unfortunately, from a lot of folks that are not part of our community. Chief.
Yeah, to answer the first question in regards to the number of locations that have been impacted, on the drive here, I know there's been at least 7 or 8 different locations that had been looted. I know that the first reports of looting happened down in the Pike area, and our officers responded there. The media was covering some of that. Sometimes you get the anger from people saying, "Where are the police?" We were everywhere, but it takes time to get there. When we got there, we gained control of that situation pretty rapidly. But one of the challenges we face is that once you come into an area, you can't give it up. So we're leaving people, and that's where the additional officers come into play. I know right before coming in here, I did another media interview, and I was away from all the television sets, and I was being asked about a Ross store that was being looted, a clothing store, and I know we had officers en route at that time. We'll assess that. The mayor talked about it, whether it's later tonight, early tomorrow. We're in response mode right now. When we start recovering from that, we'll be able to make those counts. The direction for me through our command post is to make as many arrests as we can. That has been very difficult to do at the early stage because we've been getting so many different calls and the officers running around from location to location. So I don't have an exact number of what we have yet. I didn't expect them to be too high, those numbers, early on. But as this night wears on and we start enforcing the curfew and get even more resources than when we have, those numbers, I assure you, will go up. And the mayor said it earlier. If you're coming to this city to involve yourself in either looting or committing crimes or hurting people, we're going to come after you. We're going to put you in jail, and we're going to get you prosecuted. We will not accept this in this city. That's very important. And Jeremiah, I think the other question you asked is, if we're expecting a protest, why weren't we more prepared? We deployed 4 to 5 more times the number of officers that we normally do on a Sunday. We brought in hundreds of officers, and yeah, we're going to debrief this at the end and figure out, should we have brought thousands in? I got to tell you, maybe that's the case, but the expectation was that people were going to protest peacefully. We didn't expect, we knew we're always going to get agitators. We didn't expect this number of, but now we're going to start dealing with it, and we're getting those resources that we need. I think I answered all the questions there.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chief. The next question is from Eric from the Press Telegram. Go ahead, Eric.
Hi, my question is, can you say if the people who were arrested, I know you're still sorting out specifics as to, exactly how many, but were many of those people residents not from Long Beach? Were they from outside of Long Beach, as far as you can tell? I remember you mentioned that these people, these looters, are not welcome in our city. So just wondering if that was the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we know already that many of these folks, we don't have all the numbers exactly yet, but we know from just intelligence and from assessment situation that many of these folks are not from our community. and they are coming from other places. And in fact, many of them go from protest to protest. And so we are aware of that and is being assessed. And I think tomorrow, once we get past the emergency of the moment, we will have more information about exactly who's been arrested and where exactly people are from. Next question.
Thank you, Mayor. The next questions we have are from Jim Rodriguez over at CBS 2, and I think we've covered this, but they're asking specifically about, does the city have any statistics? And as we're seeing throughout other areas that have a large number of arrested protesters, what are we doing here in Long Beach? Are we doing anything specifically relating to that?
Well, I think specifically what we're doing is all hands on deck. I mean, we have the entire police department, everyone mobilized, all of our partner agencies mobilized, the National Guard that's on the way, and more importantly, I think, we have a community that is strong, resilient, and out there helping each other. And I've seen that today, and I hope that will continue in the days ahead as we recover and get through this. The other question was, as it relates to arrests and data, we're going to have that tomorrow. I think we don't have data immediately to share about what arrests are being made, but I'm sure the chief will share that tomorrow.
Thank you, Mayor. And the last question from Julie from ABC.
We've been listening to Long Beach Mayor Robert Garcia and Chief Luna of Long Beach talking about the challenges that they've been facing tonight, and the chief was just referencing our interview with him earlier tonight live here on Fox 11. Christine, as we approach 9:30, we want to get people updated who may just be joining our coverage, although I believe most people have probably been with us for a while now. Here are some of the highlights of this evening, or lowlights. Los Angeles County curfew now in effect. We have seen widespread looting throughout LA County, especially problematic in Long Beach, which is what they were just talking about. We've seen arrests being made in downtown LA, also in Santa Monica, and now in Long Beach as well. The National Guard is in Santa Monica. We just heard that the National Guard will be in Long Beach shortly. And we also have had peaceful protests and important discussions throughout the day as well.
We want to go downtown and check out things happening there, because tonight we were seeing arrests there. This really is a visual that's going to stick in my mind for a long time, where you have the National Guard there, also with the LAPD protecting City Hall. But right now we go to Santa Monica to check in with Phil Schuman. Phil, what do you have for us?
Well, you still hear the sounds of sirens on the streets here, the helicopters overhead. A lot of the comments we heard from Long Beach could also apply to Santa Monica, a city of about 90,000. Got to show you this unbelievable devastation left behind. This is a CVS on Lincoln, just near Santa Monica Boulevard. Looted and destroyed tonight. The sirens still going off in the background. People just randomly walking in and off the street to take pictures. The police have secured this area, so no looters are still here, but just look at the devastation left behind here. Now, we earlier heard from the Santa Monica police chief echoing the Long Beach police chief. Ironically, the Santa Monica police chief, Arnaud, grew up in Long Beach, so I'm sure she's watching all this with a heavy heart, but they've all said that police were everywhere. But once they get to a location, they can't leave it. And so that means they can't get to the next location. Well, that certainly seems to be the case, Alex and Christine. In Santa Monica, for example, although it's not that big of a city, they only have 225 officers in the entire department, sworn officers. So obviously only a small number of them are on at any one time. But we haven't asked her what the same question we heard from asked of the chief in Long Beach, that why didn't they anticipate this? They anticipated a peaceful protest, they said, when we've seen what happened in Los Angeles last night.
And not only in Los Angeles, Phil, all over the country.
Around the country.
I mean, every big city in America had something similar in Los Angeles. LA was not unique. So, I mean, that is what probably one of the best questions asked tonight.
And the answer goes unchallenged. I know this isn't the time. Right now, they're in the response mode, as they said, as we walk south on Lincoln towards Broadway. It's quiet here, except for some alarms going off. There are no protesters, there are no looters in this immediate area. I know Bill Maloogian's been here. It's been sort of a hit or miss as you drive around Santa Monica. There'll be a group of police officers, sheriff's deputies, chasing some people, arresting some people, and then there'll be block after block of just quiet, and then you'll see just a random person walking along here across the street. It's probably too dark for you to see, Alex, but
I can see.
We've already got a crew boarding up one of the looted areas. I cannot tell you the extent of the devastation here.
Yeah.
It's just shocking. It's heartbreaking. Tomorrow morning, when our crews are out here, Good Day LA and so forth, and I'm sure we'll all be back here doing follow-up stories here and in Long Beach. There's just widespread destruction here. How this happened, how it was out of control for so long, is going to be a question that they're really going to have to answer in the coming days.
Some of the shots, we could see the graffiti on some of the buildings. We do apologize for people seeing language that we normally wouldn't put on the air, but due to the breaking nature of this news, that's happening. All right, looking here at appears to be a furniture store. Wow, I guess you can't
this
cart
is
off a
Cisco
table.
Home.
Yeah,
made in LA.
Cisco Home on Lincoln.
Phil, talk about the
Regarding the
graffiti,
store?
because that takes a minute to clean up. And I know driving home last night in one community, I stopped just for a moment just to take in the amount of graffiti and buildings that had been marked up with all kinds of comments and sayings. Just talk about that visual, please.
Well, there's a graffiti everywhere. It's mostly spray painted. It's mostly anti-police slogans that we can't say or even show. Gang tags and others. The graffiti's, be honest with you, the least of the concerns. If you ask me, it's more the broken windows, the shattered storefronts. You know, the looting itself is just widespread here.
And
I mean, Santa Monica's not that big. Not that big.
No.
How this happened? They just rampaged through the city, unchecked. We were here. We saw it.
And what's amazing is just how random it seems it was. You know, like some stores got it, some stores didn't, and yet that for some reason they decided to target the city of Santa Monica when there are other nearby cities that have no damage at all.
Absolutely. And how that happened, I mean, we do know that there was a planned protest here. How you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
Is this your business? No. Or are you just doing the board up?
No, just we're doing board up.
Yeah. All right. Well, is the business owner here?
Yeah.
Yes. Ask him if he wants to talk to us. If he wants, we're live on Fox 11. We'll be covering the protest and the destruction and the looting here. What business is this?
Gym.
It's a gym. Wow. I mean, we're just walking through just inches of broken glass here on the sidewalk. Look at this, Alex and Christine.
And you think about these gyms, Phil.
How you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. How are you? All right?
Sorry, he's prisoner. Phil Schuman, you're with training mate?
Yeah.
What happened here?
Yeah, so Phil just came down here. The alarm obviously went down, so I came down and just thought I'd see how it all was. And yeah, look, fortunately, no one's hurt, and it's just a little bit of material damage to the building. So yeah, we'll get it fixed up.
Are you the owner here?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Hang on one second.
Yeah.
So, were you broken into? Were you looted? What happened?
Yeah, a bit of everything. So, just obviously, as you can see, the front's all smashed up through all the glass, and yeah, a bit of equipment was stolen. So we're a gym. So there's a few bikes taken, a fair bit of equipment. So
how long have you been here?
Yeah, we've been here for about a year now. So it's a relatively new studio. We've got a couple other studios around town. So it's it's an unfortunate situation, but we'll rebuild and we'll reopen and we'll come back out of this stronger.
You seem like you have a positive attitude despite this.
Is there any other way to be? You know, you got to be positive with this sort of stuff, and we can't do anything about it. And as I said, no one's hurt, no one here is hurt. So we'll rebuild and we'll focus in on trying to make sure that everyone stays safe during these times.
And what is your name, sir?
Luke Milton, M-I-L-T-O-N. Yeah.
How long have you been with us in Southern California?
Been here for 8 years.
8 years.
Enjoying it. Still a beautiful place to be. So
you're not disillusioned?
No, I'm not. I never will be. So you know, it's one of these things that I think that if we all come together and we all stay positive, we'll all get through all of these trying times together.
Well said, sir.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks for talking to us under difficult circumstances. Alex and Christine, I can tell he wasn't from Southern California.
No, he was from Australia, Phil. We were doing those workout of the nights for our quarantine workout of the night, Fox 11 on our 7 o'clock show. Yeah, his training mate was one of them. Yeah.
Boy, that seems like a year ago, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What store is this, Phil?
Look at this store. This is Hayek Smoke Shop. This is, again, totally destroyed. No, not yet been boarded up. You had a fire earlier? Are you the owner?
I'm the owner of the gym and the museum next door.
So you've been to Santa Monica for a long time, sir?
25 years.
Wow.
What do you make of this?
Unbelievable. You know, my heart goes out for the poor gentleman that died from the police officer, but it's like, you know,
George Floyd.
Yeah, George Floyd. And I was born in like 1958. I saw a lot of stuff going through the 60s, and I understand a lot of different things coming from Chicago. And I feel for the people, but to go and destroy and damage stuff for small business, for just like family businesses just trying to make it, or any business.
Now, which business is yours?
It's the Crystal and the Fossil Shop. The gemstone.
Corner?
Yeah, the museum. It's basically the town museum.
Were you here when all this happened?
Yes, I was in here fighting with the people. I was in here, I put the fire out when the fire came.
Now, let me ask you a question. What was the police response, if any?
The police were so busy, they couldn't be everywhere. They did their part. They did their part. My heart goes out to them.
They did come at some point?
At some point, the best they could, but there were a lot of, like, you could hear, like, shooting in the background. There were explosions in the background. I think SWAT came, National Guard was here.
Yeah. And what is your name?
Henry.
Henry.
Of Wonders of the World, Henry Runge.
Henry Runge. Well, thanks for talking to us. We're live on Fox 11. Henry, what did you see in the crowd today? Anger, frustration, callousness, what? Greed?
I'm lost for words on that.
Yeah.
You know, instead of like being together as one community and expressing something for resolving a peaceful manner in convicting the people that needed to be convicted. I don't feel it's fair to have somebody like family business or any kind of corporate business should be destroyed and have to suffer for this. I mean, a lot of the stuff that got vandalized was in everybody's own neighborhood, grocery stores or whatever. How are people going to eat?
That's an excellent question. We don't have an answer. Thank you for talking to us. We're going to keep walking here. Alex and Christine, you can jump in here at any time. But
can I get a card?
I'll be right back.
I
this
think
now is back on Broadway. Yeah, go ahead. This is back on Broadway in Lincoln, the Vaughn store. Santa Monica police now guarding that after that was broken into. I think Bill Maluzhin was here earlier.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Christine.
At least 2 or 3.
I just really felt the emotion of that business owner. It sounds like he just put everything into his business, his heart and his soul. And you feel his emotion. And then you had the other guy, the gym owner, who seemed to express some optimism of, we will rebuild. But think of all the business owners.
You know,
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, you know, the gym owner is a young guy, relatively new to Southern California, still idealistic. The second gentleman, you know, a generation older, been through a few more things in his life and sounded a little world weary, right? Different perspective.
Yeah.
Look at this. I mean, every street, every block we walk down, it's destroyed.
Wow.
This is Broadway. The graffiti on the windows, the shattered glass on the sidewalk. People are no longer out on the streets except for an occasional person. You know, the initials, you know what it stands for almost on every wall. Why Santa Monica? That's a question for tomorrow, Alex and Christine.
Yeah, indeed. Why Santa Monica?
Well, you could ask that really of why of Los Angeles, because it didn't happen in Los Angeles, it happened in Minneapolis, but it goes to show you that the anger is felt by so many across our community, in our cities and our young people, and that they were expressing it in many different areas, not just one neighborhood where they could go to the scene of the incident.
Well, tonight it's why Santa Monica and why Long Beach. Last night it was why Los Angeles. Of course, so much destruction in the Fairfax district last night. The mayor of Los Angeles, who joined us live last night, has just released a message posted to Twitter. It's the first time we've heard from him today on camera, and we're going to listen to that now. Here's the message.
Today, we saw peaceful protests across the Southland and throughout this nation. We also saw images of looting and violence that are nothing to do with our protest. Criminals are wrong to think that they can hijack this message undermine this movement and divide us. They will not. So to those who are hurting, we hear you. And to those who are acting criminally by smashing windows and looting, we see what you are doing and we will arrest you. Angelenos have it in our hearts to look out for one another. We've seen heroes stand in front of stores refusing to let them be looted. We've seen communities come together to clean sidewalks in front of damaged buildings, businesses that were to reopen this weekend and provide jobs for people who haven't had a paycheck, folks who have cleared graffiti off of synagogues, who want to reclaim their neighborhoods. We've seen people peacefully protest and refuse to let a pure message of nonviolence become co-opted by those who think that violence is the answer. It is never the answer. And we've seen people follow the lead of a great hero, John Lewis, who called on this nation this weekend to be constructive, not destructive, to follow the footsteps of Dr. King, to bend the arc of history towards justice, to march peacefully and powerfully for freedom and equality, and to meet hate with hope. You see, we are a great city, and we are at our greatest when we are a good city. We can be a great country, and we are our greatest when we're a good country. And we have the capacity, each one of us, to be great people, but only when we are good people. As we wrestle with the demons of racism and brutality, as we see violence around us, we must find our better angels. And I know that we will. So please, stay safe and observe the curfew. Please go home and stay there. And may strength and love for one another guide us. As always, Los Angeles. Good evening.
You almost would think with Mayor Garcetti's last words that he was talking about the coronavirus, with the emotion that we would hear from him at his news conferences there. But that is not the case. He's talking about the city of Los Angeles and what we've seen with the looting and the destruction and the damage. So we're looking right now at a live shot of Long Beach, our helicopter overhead there. I don't know if we can check in with Kevin Takumi and get some update here. No, we don't have Kevin on this one. Okay.
We're going to go back to Kevin in a bit, but we're going to go to Coco McAvoy on the streets of Santa Monica now. Coco.
Good evening. So we're at Vons now at Lincoln and Broadway, and you can just see the aftermath. This place is completely trashed following the people looting this store. So you can see all of the debris, all of the food here in the street. And if you take a look inside of Vons, you can see that the floor is a complete mess. Now, earlier, about a few minutes ago, there were 5 people that were detained. Santa Monica Police is now standing guard here at the Vons to make sure no one else enters inside of this store to create and wreak more havoc on this store, because this is really what we're seeing all throughout Santa Monica now, is we're surveying damage, so to speak. As you walk the streets here, you can really see that a lot of businesses are damaged. I don't know if you can zoom in, Julio. You can see that there's caution tape set up along businesses right across the street. Business owners are now starting to come in and see the damage that is taking place here in Santa Monica, and they're trying to board up their stores, do anything that they can. But something that we saw that was fascinating earlier today was a woman who stepped in front of REI to make sure that a scene like this did not unfold there. Unfortunately, REI did end up being targeted, but take a listen to Natalie and the reason behind her stepping in front of REI to make sure rioters, looters could not get in. Hey guys, you see this? Okay, do you guys want to come back to us? Hey, do you guys want to come back to us? Yes, this is really quite a scene. It's called recreational equipment it seems right now. REI actually is what this business is, and it's really quite a scene unfolding here. You can see that there was someone with really some kind of weapon trying to break into the store, and this woman here with a sign saying "End all violence" literally shielded the store. And at one point it put her in a really dangerous position because people were trying to push her at that point. Okay, now someone just flew. Yeah. So yeah, it's getting a little hostile here. As you can see, this woman, though, is very brave. She has not moved from her spot. She is still defending this store, even though someone literally threw some type of device at her. She did not move. And so now there's another man who's right there with her, trying to guard her and defend her. We're going to try to talk to these people about why they did this. Hi, if you could tell us about why you decided to stay here and defend this store.
Because it doesn't need to get looted. That's not what this is about.
United we stand, united we fall. Social distance is not.
When I talked to her more, Natalie was saying that it wasn't even about And something really interesting, as I was saying, when I was talking to Natalie, she said it wasn't even about the store. She just wanted to make sure that the message was clear to people, to make sure that everyone knew that this was about George Floyd. So really fascinating from her that she put her life on the line to make sure that the message was not erased during what was a very peaceful protest. But again, we're surveying damage out here at Vons, and you can see this is another store that fell victim to the protest here today. Back to you.
I just get back to that shot and that visual with her trying to protect that store. And those guys looked almost professional to me, the way they were dressed in complete, completely hidden with a hammer. And that's often a look of the anarchist, the Antifa look. But, we don't know for sure. OK, let me ask you, though, Coco. You are out there on the streets. You are an African-American woman. I would love to get your perspective as to what you saw today, being out there in Santa Monica all day.
We saw so many different scenes unfolding. It was really fascinating. It started off as a peaceful protest, and it was beautiful to see that, to see all kinds of people, a diverse group of people really coming together to unite in the name of George Floyd, but also unite in the name of other people who lost their lives to either racism or questions of police brutality. So that was really fascinating to see. But then what ended up happening is the protest turned into something else. And it became a bit chaotic. And as someone who sees what's happening and reports, impartially, it is difficult to see a peaceful protest change into something else, because you know that at times the message ends up getting lost, and it's important that the message is not lost. So, I saw a lot of great people today, and I also saw some people who took advantage of the situation, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, we're looking there at that Vons, and Coco, we talked about you working with photographer Julio Duran, and I don't know if you want to pose another question to Julio, because he and I were out there during the riots in 1992, but Julio, we saw a lot of the grocery stores being looted back then as well. The visual of people just running out with food and chickens and toilet paper and paper towels, and that sticks in my mind. Julio,
you know what I think back at all the small merchants, the Korean-owned merchants, protecting their property, and they were serving the community, serving a great purpose in a community that didn't have supermarkets, and they were being attacked. And remembering them defending their shops, or that Vons on Beverly and Vermont, that was quite a scene there. You definitely feel bad for these big merchants. But also for the small mom and pop places that, it just reminds me of all. I mean, a lot of them didn't get to come back. It took them years to get their shops back, and this is sad.
Well, and another point, Christine, that I'm seeing that several of my friends that are leaders in the local African-American community are talking to me about, why Santa Monica, which is a question we've been asking. And there has been chatter, and I've seen it all day online, of certain parts of these protesters, not all of, or these rioters, who have made the decision that it would be better to go to another community, a wealthier community, and to try to target them and make them feel pain as compared to hurt our own community, because the last time around they ended up destroying their own businesses and then had nowhere to shop and eat and all that sort of thing, and that they're better off to go to one of these other communities, and that there was a strategic decision made by some of them to actually go to a community like Santa Monica.
Yeah. Well, I think as we look at a grocery store, which is a big chain, a Vons, I'm thinking of all the employees who worked here, especially given the pandemic. We were so reliant on our grocery stores to be open. It was one of the few places we could go when we were all hunkered down because of the pandemic. And as things are just now starting to reopen, there was this feeling of getting to go out to places, to go out and about. But for a while there, literally the grocery store was the only place you could go. And we were so grateful for our grocery store workers, such gratitude for those who would go out and show up to work when others were hunkered down at home trying to avoid the coronavirus because it was so very scary and we didn't know much about it. And to think now that these are people who may or may not get to go back to work tomorrow.
All right, we're going to check in now. Our thanks to Coco and Julio, who continue great work. Rick Lozano continues his great work. He's in Orange County covering their version. He's Santa Ana now. What are you seeing, Rick?
Yeah, and we're just minutes away from the 10 o'clock curfew that goes into effect here in the Santa Ana area. And behind me is a skirmish line made up of Santa Ana police officers and Orange County Sheriff's deputies as they try to flush what was a very large gathering of protesters here near the downtown area out of this immediate area. Now, I will say on behalf of these law enforcement officers that I have witnessed extreme restraint on their part. Protesters not behaving quite as badly as was the case here last night when there was so much damage to businesses, so much looting going on. To our knowledge, so far, none of that is happening. But I must say that on several occasions, I've seen protesters toss powerful fireworks into these skirmish lines. These officers and deputies have had to scramble out of the way while those things exploded. And in none of the cases that I've witnessed that happen have these officers responded, with the exception of firing back rubber bullets on occasion. Now, as you can see, we're north, south, east, west in this location, and they continue to march these streets, flushing these protesters out of the immediate area of the downtown Santa Ana. This has been going on for quite some time. Earlier, we saw peaceful gatherings, and we are still witnessing mostly peaceful protests in this area. And again, I can't say how well law enforcement down here in Santa Ana is handling the situation. Guys, I think you maybe wanted me to go back to you, so I'm going to send it back to you.
Fortunately, Rick, we're now seeing a fire that is underway in Long Beach. We just heard from the Long Beach fire chief not that long ago at the top of the hour during their press briefing. Now we do see something is on fire here. We're just getting to the scene, trying to get our bearings of what exactly this is, if this is a business or what exactly we're looking at here. Is this, is Kevin in this chopper? Is this another one of our choppers? Okay, so Kevin Takumi's in another chopper in another area right now. So we just have the picture here. Christine, and last night at this time we were looking at so many fires in the Fairfax district, and it was, you know, so sad to see those sort of empty streets and with a curfew in place, and then the flames, and which are just so dramatic at night, and to watch, you know, this moment, you know, flame seems kind of appropriate and a symbol for what seems to be happening to our societal norms and sort of a sense of order in our community.
You know, I'm talking with somebody that I turn to for wisdom, especially wisdom in the community. And you talked about LXY Santa Monica, for example.
Yep.
And I just want to share, without mentioning his name, his thought that, and we've heard other people talk about this too, why the looting and why the destruction, and the theory being we want others to know our pain, to feel the pain of this as well. And this person's even telling me targeting areas where people have felt perhaps profiled or mistreated. So I think that there are a lot of issues that are going to come when it comes to discussion and healing and ways to empower people and include people who have felt not included and not invited to the party or to the dance or to share in the riches of America.
I think that's a great word, inclusion. It's such an important word. for so many different things. You know, when I ran for student body president, I said inclusion was the theme of that was sort of the reason that I wanted to lead. And you think of, is that I don't know what that is. Hopefully it's just property there. And there are so many people that feel like they're on the outskirts of society on both the left and the right. This isn't even just a political thing. And as we've seen, the incredible income gap change, think about the chasm in our city of Los Angeles between people that live in places like Bel Air and Pacific Palisades and Beverly Hills and what their life is like in a $30 million house and somebody living on Skid Row. Even downtown Los Angeles, just streets apart from Skid Row are these incredible condos and massive penthouses. And you know, there's a consequence to some of that. Again, I am not justifying this looting. I am against it. I don't think it's the answer to this. But there clearly is a lot of pain going on, and that needs to be addressed. And I don't think all of the looters are doing it for the same reason either. There clearly are Antifa, professional agitators that are in there, but there clearly are other people who do feel cut off from society, who feel like they are not included, like what you're saying, who feel desperate after months of forced unemployment, and who are sort of looking to get theirs while they can, and are proud of that moment. Do not feel bad about it at all.
Well, they also have the thought that some of this is generational.
Yep.
That it's not only, you know, centuries in the making here, but generations in the making that have caused such pain that affects them to this day.
So we're going to continue to delve into those issues and others as we now approach what is usually our time that we begin the Fox 11 news at 10. We are going to get you caught up on all of the breaking developments of an extraordinary day in Los Angeles. The Fox 11 news at 10 starts right now. Tonight, breaking news. The looting continues from Santa Monica to Long Beach on a day that started with peaceful protests.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
Protests facing off with police as hundreds of looters run away with arms full and no officers in sight. Some protesters stepping in, risking their own lives to stop the violence. In downtown LA, this very close call with a cruiser.
Images of a nation coming apart. We must not let them win.
We're covering all the events from LA County to the OC. Our special coverage on Fox 11 begins right now. It has been an absolutely heartbreaking weekend for Los Angeles, the likes of which many of us will never forget. Good evening. It's 10 o'clock. I'm Alex Michaels.
And I'm Christine Devine. We have been on the air for the past 10 hours covering another day of violence here in Los Angeles. Let's take a look right now at the latest developments at 10 o'clock. There is a curfew for LA County in effect. There's been widespread looting across LA County, from Santa Monica to Long Beach, to trouble tonight in downtown LA. We have seen many arrests in downtown LA. The National Guard is here in downtown LA, as well as Santa Monica, and Long Beach called for it as well. There have been peaceful protests, though, throughout the day, overshadowed by so much of this.
We are looking live in Long Beach. This is where a fire is now burning. We are starting to see firefighters arrive to try to get a handle on this somehow. We have seen fires throughout Southern California tonight as a result of some of this looting that we have seen. Several different fires in Santa Monica as well. This now the latest. It comes after we saw a night of several fires last night in Melrose. This has been a very, very difficult to process night of so much pain on display throughout our country and throughout our community. Pain over the loss of George Floyd, pain over this looting and rioting, and pain for all of the people that are going to be impacted for some time trying to clean up the mess of this night.
As we're watching this here, I'm getting information from two different sources that it is a men's clothing store, the old Press Telegram building, a men's clothing store on 7th and Pine that we're watching burn. This is two people who are telling me that as we were watching
Men's Suit Outlet. Yeah. Let's go to Susan Hirasuna. She is in Long Beach. She's been there throughout the night, and a night that I'm sure you will never forget, Susan.
never forget, of course. Alex and Christine, good evening to you. So we are on 5th Street, just off of Long Beach Boulevard, and this entire block, it's not a long block, there's about 10 storefronts here, but nearly every one of these stores was broken into, and there is debris everywhere. Hangers and leftover clothing and whatever. The GNC was broken into. The Subway was broken into. The Sally Beauty Supply was broken into. We missed this as far as the looting is concerned, but just a short block away from here, that's where we witnessed all of that looting at a Gene Machine store as well as the Ross store. Take a look at this. It was an incredible scene. When you, pardon me, when you see all these people rushing into the store and almost gleefully coming out with armloads of merchandise, of jeans, of shoes, and then their friends would pull up and they would just throw it all into the car and take off. And it seemed like forever that there was without a police presence whatsoever. It was something I'd never seen, and we were in the middle of it, which was really remarkable. And then also, I'm not sure what's caught in my throat, but also not long into our coverage there, somebody dropped a cherry bomb, and this is what happened. The, vans up the wall.
Whoa! Oh. You okay, Susan?
Okay, I was a little too close to that.
Are you okay?
I'm okay, but I am okay, but I heard the concussion. And Carlos is not okay.
Okay.
Carlos,
All right.
my photographer, is down.
Oh, okay. Susan, please take care of yourself.
No, come back to me. I'm right on the
Get back to us and let
sound
us know.
mic. Okay, so we ran out of battery on one of our microphones, so I'm trying to get very close to Carlos with the natural sound mic so that I can continue to talk and show you what the situation is here. And then, Carlos, back up just a little bit, because I want to show that in front of the T-Mobile phone store, it's almost quaint now to see that on the sidewalk they put those markers to keep people socially distanced. It just seems like another time period, and yet that was just a few days ago when we had to worry more about coronavirus than looters and rioters. Alex, Christine?
All right, Susan, we'll give you a moment to recharge your batteries. I think we all are going to need more than a moment to symbolically recharge our batteries going forward after this. Thank you, Susan.
And as we're watching this fire here, I'm hearing from somebody who actually had bought a suit at this store. My dear friend Antonio says he actually bought the suit for his dad's funeral at this location, saying that he really can't believe this, that it is a family-owned business that is on fire here in Long Beach. And he writes, so sad, as you might think, we're witnessing somebody's livelihood right there, a family-owned business there up in flames in Long Beach.
So many different people experiencing so much anger and pain tonight. Coco McAvoy, she has been going nonstop as an Energizer Bunny for like 12 hours live on the air now. She joins us once again from Santa Monica. Coco.
We're getting a closer look at the Vons on Lincoln and Broadway. Just take a look at this. You can see this is how the group of people were able to infiltrate into Vons. You can see all of this shattered glass. There's no telling what type of instrument they used. Now, the Santa Monica Police Department did give us clearance. They tell us we can come inside of the store. However, they told us to be careful because the floor is very slippery. Take a look at the floor. You can see a number of remnants of flowers and just dirt and all kinds of food. And it's really interesting because if you take a look around, you can see that not much has necessarily been taken. The issue here is the fact that there's just such a mess. It seems like people came into this store intentionally trying to create a mess. You can see this floor is completely filled with all kinds of debris and liquids. But if you look down the aisles as well, you can see Pepsi bottles, everything just kind of smashed off of the shelves. So whoever works at this store, it's going to be a lot of cleanup for them. And this is really telling because we're not sure what exactly the motive was going into this Vons store. As I said, a lot of the merchandise is still on the shelves, it appears to be. However, there's just a complete mess on this floor, and it's going to take a lot of cleaning up to get this store back together. As the police department warned us before we came in here, they said, hey, it's slick in there, so be careful, because they've come in here multiple times just to try to survey the damage, and also they've been holding guard outside of this Vons store. They did detain 5 people as well, and they're trying to make sure that no one else comes inside of this store to either steal something or create a mess here. So we're going to keep walking through, but I'm going to throw it back to you guys for now.
Go as you do, and I know you're relatively new to Southern California. I don't know if you haven't experienced one of our massive earthquakes yet, fortunately. In some ways, this looks like an earthquake hit inside this store. You know, what you would see, everything sort of on the floors, and it's so crazy to think of that.
Absolutely. My teammate in the field, Julio, is nodding at me saying, absolutely, yes, this does look like an earthquake aftermath. And it's just fascinating to see because, again, you wonder why necessarily this is all happening. So as we keep walking through the aisles here, you can see that glass is shattered. But again, not much really taken from here. So it just appears that the motive, again, we don't know. We weren't inside of the minds of the people who were in here at the time, but by the looks of it, again, not much food is taken, but it appears that the motive was possibly to create a mess, to create a scene inside of the Vons store.
Well, they've certainly accomplished that. Coco McAvoy, thank you for your reporting. We'll check in with you again in a little bit.
All right, the tense situation in downtown LA continues as police track down and arrest anyone violating the curfew. Christina Gonzalez, who's been covering the events all day, joining us live downtown, where there has been a lot of activity tonight. Christina.
Yes, as a matter of fact, it's very much of a moving target right now. Let's show you over here because you will see some motorcycles, some of the motorcycle units on the left, and they're waiting for the people who are running away to come down the street as they chase them and break them down. If we can go to the video, we were able to capture that with our cameras from the ground. So what you're seeing is this is the way they break down what is left of protesters who are refusing to leave after the curfew. And remember, the curfew went into effect here at 6. As of 9 o'clock, they were still trying to march around. So they were told to disperse, and they did not. Part of the group then decided to go run off, you know, going down avenues like Grand and so forth, and little by little they would break them down and separate them. And some would run away one way, some would run away the other. They would pick some up, but as long as they were moving and separating, they kind of let them go. And they've really diddled down that crowd to very, very little. They also had at least 30 arrests in front of City Hall, and those were people who refused to disperse. They were told, and they decided to stay. If we can come back live now here, you will see that this is Grand Park. Now, they are not allowing anyone, not even media, at Grand Park. We tried to actually walk over to get you closer back to City Hall, but now they have the National Guard back here live, and all the area around Grand Park has National Guard's personnel actually stopping people, including us, from getting anywhere near City Hall, which you might be able to see behind us, not actually because of this perspective, but it's all lit up in the blue from the COVID thing, but it is also being protected by National Guard's personnel and by LAPD. At this point, things are beginning to really, I'm not going to say calm down because it's not necessarily calmed, but definitely the numbers of people who are running up and down the street are much less than they were before. We've had no looting, but plenty of arrests and no injuries other than the issue earlier today of the vehicle, the police unit that hit one of the protesters, and that is being investigated. For now, I'm Christina Gonzalez in downtown Los Angeles. Back to you.
Tell us more about that, Christina. What happened? A police unit hit a protester.
You know, and I know we have the video. I don't know if we can cue it up real quickly, but in essence, there was a protest. The whole protest began today at Pershing Square. And there was a group of protesters, and one of the police units, for some reason unknown at this point, moved forward and hit one of them. And after the person was hit and went to the ground, the unit continued going. And there was quite a bit of anger over that. As a matter of fact, the chief of police said that he was going to look into that because from the surface of it, it looked like a very strange thing, but he didn't know what was going on. So it is definitely being looked at.
All right, Christina, thank you. As we look at that picture from Skyfox, a bit eerie as the city is technically under a curfew right now, to see so many empty streets. Here's that moment that Christina was just referencing. You see the cruiser then backing out Clearly a lot of tension in that moment, a moment that frankly, could have led to sort of a lot worse outcome, thankfully, than I guess it did, but a scary moment there.
The chief of police said today he was personally giving out his business card to hear from anybody who felt they had a complaint. So Christina had mentioned earlier that some people were really upset about that video and what they saw there. And then others have responded that perhaps, you know, that officer was alone there in that crowd and had to, or did get out of the way.
Yeah.
Away from the crowd.
And I know a lot of us, and me included, have questioned some of the police tactics tonight, but there are so many police officers that have worked so hard, and you can only imagine what an unbelievable challenge this is for them and how complicated this is for policing. And so we want to commend the good officers out there that have really put their own lives in the line in a very difficult situation, and done some important work tonight as well as the firefighters who are out there right now in Long Beach as well.
Making some true progress there in Long Beach. Not only that, Alex, about the officers, I have so many have messaged me about how heartbroken they are over what they're seeing in our city, how upset they were over the death of George Floyd themselves as officers, but also how hard they feel they've worked to try to work on community relations, to try to be a part of the community, to uplift children, empower youth, encourage them to do well in school, to get good grades. I'm thinking of a mental health unit established by one police department or one police station where they were sending out mental health experts on certain calls to make sure that issue was addressed. So many have. One even said to me, we joined to be part of the change, to be part of a new generation of policing. And so I'm feeling the true heartbreak, too, from some of these officers who feel like they got on the job to be a part of good, to be a part of, really, like I said before, a new generation of policing.
And to make sure that something like 1992 never happens again. And unfortunately, we're seeing something like that happen again on our streets.
Increased diversity?
Right, a lot of increased diversity. And you and I both have spent so many years and so many weekends working on those programs personally, volunteering with the LAPD and different police departments around Southern California on these community outreach programs and working with kids in the community and trying to mentor them to ensure something like this doesn't happen again, which is why this is so painful personally for both you and I, and I know for so many of our viewers that are watching as well. All right, some of the worst looting and violence is taking place in Santa Monica, where there's just widespread devastation tonight. Phil Schuman, somebody else who has been working so hard in this community for so many decades, joins us now with a look at that. Phil.
Well, widespread devastation is a good description of it, Alex. This is a pastry cart on the sidewalk here on Lincoln outside a CVS pharmacy, and some of the worst destruction inside this store. The alarm you can still hear blaring in the background. While we were waiting to go on with Christina Gonzalez's report, a man came in, looked around, put a bag of liquor in a shopping bag, and just walked back out. And look at what happened in here. The cash registers tipped over, the ATMs destroyed, merchandise all over the floors. This is some of the most graphic destruction that we've seen in Santa Monica today, a city of some 90,000, famous, of course, around the world. Police department said they couldn't be everywhere, and we certainly saw that. If you were with us earlier today at 4th and Broadway, the Van store looted. Chaos there for probably at least an hour. 9 fires set in the city of Santa Monica today. So tomorrow morning, they're going to wake up to a huge cleanup effort. Start to ask some questions of how this could have happened, why this wasn't anticipated. Same questions we were asking in Long Beach earlier tonight. But Ellis and Christine, right now, it's kind of an eerie quiet, an eerie calm here, except for the police sirens you hear, occasionally a helicopter overhead, and then the alarm still going from businesses that were broken into.
This is very reminiscent, Phil, of 1992, where once that curfew was in place, I remember driving down the street to Hollywood on assignment, to Koreatown on assignment, through other parts of Los Angeles, and not seeing what seemed to be a soul out there on the streets. Last night, though, Phil, we saw all those cars driving around the Fairfax district still. I mean, Bill Melugin had a line of police officers, and you would see cars driving by taking pictures. Well, it's very calm there, though, where you are. No cars.
And just to add, though, to that, on a normal night, Santa Monica is pretty quiet at night. It is not like West Hollywood or other parts, or even parts of the Fairfax district, that on a regular night is more bustling, especially on a Sunday night, with the exception of Fridays, Saturdays, sometimes Thursdays. Evenings in Santa Monica are fairly quiet. And as somebody that's lived around that area and wanted to go out in that area at night, I've always been sort of struck by how it does kind of close up early on most nights, too. But nothing like this, obviously.
Now, I know we've spent a lot of time talking about 1992. That was confined largely to South Los Angeles. We didn't see downtown. We didn't see the next night Santa Monica, Long Beach. And also, keep in mind, in 1992, 63 people were killed by gunfire, 10 of them by law enforcement. I mean, it was 6 days of rioting and unrest. This is terrible. But it's not nearly as bad as it was then, as bad as this is.
Well, I'm hoping, Phil, we don't have 6 days here in Los Angeles, because the heartbreak.
I mean, Phil brings up a great point that we haven't really talked about, though. It's amazing, given all of that destruction and everything we've seen today, that we are not hearing about serious injuries. We are not seeing those clashes with police that led to violence. That, yes, this is terrible destruction of property that is completely inexcusable, but we don't have hospitals overrun with people that were injured today. That is something.
Yeah, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Phil. We'll...
You know, I was listening to Mayor Garcetti. Yeah, I was just going to say, I was listening to Mayor Garcetti, and if you look back and you read Tom Bradley's remarks in 1992, and you substitute Mayor Garcetti, it could be exactly the same words.
Well, we are looking here at a furniture store as Phil continues to walk down the street in Santa Monica. Phil, you've been there all day. Where you're at, you're not seeing the heavy law enforcement presence that we saw as you continued your coverage later in the afternoon. What are you seeing when it comes to law enforcement? Because earlier we saw the Sheriff's Department backing up Santa Monica PD.
Yeah, well, the Sheriff's Department is here backing up the Santa Monica Police Department, and we've been here at Lincoln and Santa Monica for probably the past hour or so, and we did see a heavy law enforcement presence, but what they're doing is they're jumping around, going from call to call. If they get reports of a crowd gathered, or if there's any looting or vandalism going on, which we haven't heard any since the past couple of hours, then they respond to that. But here, as we walk up towards the intersection of Santa Monica and Lincoln, I'm sure we've all driven through there many times, it's quiet. There's a couple of police officers at the Jack in the Box over here, but not seeing a ton of law enforcement. But, you know, it's interesting, because you were with us live a couple of hours ago when all those National Guard units rolled in and all those sheriff's units rolled in 5 hours after the fact.
Yeah. And now it appears that they have successfully shut down Santa Monica, but way too late for many of these business owners.
This is Santa Monica Boulevard. Yeah. There's a Sheriff's Department bus with the people that have been taken into custody for violating the curfew order have been loaded onto those buses and processed, and then they wouldn't tell me where they're actually taking them. They didn't say they weren't going to county jail. They were given a criminal citation and released. But Santa Monica Boulevard still got some police cars and that Sheriff's Department bus on it. And now this is what we're seeing a lot of. The boarding up process has already begun. Another storefront. I mean, every block here is heavily damaged or destroyed.
Well, you know, that's not even...
How you doing? Do you live here?
There's an arrest that Rudy Leyva is showing us on the other side of the street.
We went out today on the protest. We were peaceful, 100%.
Yeah.
The cops came to us instead of going after the looters, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, we're hearing a complaint from someone who lives here who said the police came after them when they were just, you know, peacefully on the sidewalk and not going after the looters. But you see someone being taken into custody here on the curbside on Santa Monica. And here's a bus full of people that have already been detained. You got a bus full of folks there? Yeah.
Can you tell, Phil, is that bus full of people?
Let's take a quick look. Yeah, this is a Santa Monica, a Los Angeles County Sheriff's bus that they use to transport prisoners to and from the jail and the courthouse, and the windows are blacked out, but can definitely see some people inside. Yeah.
Wow.
You know, a lot of people we talked to earlier, listening to Christine, they were on the street. They thought they were protesting peacefully. This was after the looting, and then all of a sudden, Santa Monica PD, with help from their other law enforcement partners, decided that this is the time to make arrests. And if you're on the street, there really wasn't much of a discussion about leaving. It was more of a discussion about put your hands behind your back. We're taking you into custody.
It seems like there was a window where things were okay, and a window when that closed, and now the police have moved in and are taking some action. Phil Shuman and your photographer Rudy Leyva, who have just done extraordinary work all day throughout Southern California. It's been amazing to watch you, Phil, and Rudy as well. Thank you both for your contributions, and we will get back to you soon. We had quite a moment not too long ago, Christine, here on the air with the chief of police from Long Beach.
Yeah, we talked to the chief of police, Robert Luna, on the phone about tonight's looting in Long Beach. When we spoke to him, there was not yet any police presence at one store. We watched looters break in.
The Long Beach Police Department is out here. We are in multiple places in the city. Yes, we have a significant challenge tonight, but you know what? Our police officers and the many other police officers that have come into the city of Long Beach are going to be strong tonight, and they're going to get the job done. And we're going to be fine. But as you see with other cities...
Is this getting the job done, what we're looking at right now?
I'm sorry?
Is this what we're looking at? People literally breaking into a store and taking whatever they want. Is that getting the job done?
Well, I'm not sitting in front of a television at this second because I moved away from the command post to talk to all of you. But anytime you see anybody looting, that's a criminal act.
What is the strategy of the Long Beach Police Department as we've seen this looting?
It's to try and stop it and make arrests whenever we can.
Do you have enough officers to actually stop this, as we watch multiple different locations where this looting happens with no officers anywhere in sight? We saw in Santa Monica the same thing happen. The National Guard pulled up 4 hours later after everything was already done. Do you have the resources to meet this actual challenge that we're faced with right now?
Well, I believe we do have enough officers on the street, and we're getting more as we're speaking. So we will be able to handle this.
How is that true, though? I mean, you got to. That doesn't match the reality that we're seeing right now.
You know what? I'm not looking at it, and I think it's unfair that you're sitting here. You've asked me the same question over and over. We've got people on the way. It's unacceptable, and I don't think you asking the question over and over is going to make it any better. We're going to get people out there, make sure that we can absolutely handle it. And it is. I could tell you're frustrated, I'm frustrated, and we'll get people out there and hopefully make as many arrests as we can as soon as possible.
Some tense moments there with the chief of police from Long Beach. He referenced that interview several times during the later press conference that he gave. That interview got a lot of attention online with a lot of people sort of talking about that exchange. It came in, I think, at a moment of a lot of frustration for a lot of us for a variety of reasons.
And then we did see Long Beach police move into that area and secure that area, and the crowd's 100% gone. As we look at Long Beach here, this is a building that was on fire. Kevin Takumi and Sky Fox. Kevin?
Buttons open on me on his panel.
Kevin, can you hear him? There. We want to talk with...
I can't hear program.
Okay.
His button's open on me.
So Kevin's still trying to get online with us here.
If one of our producers may be pressing a button that makes it hard for Kevin to hear us. Kevin, let's give you one more try. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you now. We're over Long Beach here, and this is the Men's Warehouse that caught fire here. You can see Long Beach City Fire trying to get it knocked down here. There's not a, they're trying to do their best here. They've got hoses in on all sides of it, but it still looks like it's burning through the attic space. They're trying to cool it down and trying to get it knocked down. It's been going for about 30 minutes now. A lot of these fires they've been trying to put out here as they go along. So you can see it's been a difficult thing throughout the evening here. They do have a lot of police backup for those firefighters down below here, but the entire district here, taking a look at it, the entire Newly area restaurant entertainment district completely shut down by police. They've been able to move everyone out of the area at this point. So most of the looting and all that looting you saw with Susan Hirasuna earlier in the evening has kind of quieted down at this point, as they have been able to get more police presence in here with a lot of mutual aid coming in. But things starting to quiet down now, but now they're starting to have to handle some of these fires that keep popping up in some of these closed businesses, possibly from some other electrical damage that's been done from all the looting, as well as broken gas mains. So those are the kind of things they're having to handle in the overnight hours here. We'll send it back to you in the studio.
Susan Hirasuna is on the ground there at that fire. Susan.
Questions? Here's my answer. Okay, just so. Refer you to our department operations center.
All right, very good. Thank you. That was the battalion chief. I was hoping to get some information from him, and lo and behold, our timing was perfect in that you caught that moment where he was basically telling me, no, I will not talk to you on camera. So we are standing now in front of the fire that Kevin Takumi was talking about, and it is quite remarkable because of how many firefighters they have here working on this. The fire hoses are stretched across the street. I see at least a half dozen fire engines here at least. And in addition to what we're witnessing here with them fighting this fire inside this building, and we see all the broken glass and whatever, in the last hour and a half, we have just heard so many flashbangs and seen fireworks. It has been a bit disturbing. As you know, I was, and Carlos, my photographer, we were super close to a flashbang, so much so that we both felt the concussion, the sound concussion. So to continue to hear that kind of noise and loud enough to make me jump, quite frankly. So, but now this area where the fire is about 3 blocks from where we talked to you last, maybe 2 blocks from where we talked to you last. And so it is so sad indeed that in this relatively short little space of a few blocks, you've got this much devastation. I can only presume, I don't know 100% that this is as a result of the looting and the rioting, but it would seem that it would be right in line with what happened just a few hours ago, just a couple of blocks away. And you see there that the firefighters are still pouring water on the scene, so it is still an active scene for sure. Lots of smoke, yes, white smoke, but they are still very much concerned that this building has something that is burning and will continue to burn if they don't stay here and put it out. Alex, Christine?
All right, Susan, thank you for your continued aggressive work trying to get answers for the people of Southern California out there in Long Beach. We appreciate all your hard work all day, as well as your photographer, Carlos. I think I want to recap where things are at right now, Christine, as we are at 10:30. Alex Michelson with Christine Devine.
Here's what's going on now at 10:30. A curfew for LA County is in effect. There's been widespread looting in LA County. There are active fires. You saw the one in Long Beach just being put out right now. There have also been those peaceful protests throughout the day. Some we've covered, some we've not been able to get to. We've also seen some protesters attempting to protect a business, not even their own business, but they wanted to stop looters from getting in. We've had that amazing, incredible footage of people trying to stand up to some of the protesters.
So, like, we don't have enough going on tonight. We've got a high-speed pursuit that is now underway. So we take you to the 60 freeway. This was near Hacienda Heights area, moving at high speeds on the freeway in the midst of all of this civil unrest and all of these problems and the looting and the fires and everything else. We now have a pursuit on the freeway that is dangerous. Obviously, this is late at night on a night when the city is under curfew, and it's a Sunday night anyways, so you wouldn't expect a ton of traffic on the freeways. But this guy is going quickly and now changing lanes. It looks like maybe moving on to another freeway here through Southern California. Obviously, the few people that are out that probably aren't even supposed to be out on the freeway right now are not expecting to see this coming their way. As we look, we would have just lost our, there it is. The picture from Skyfox, Christine.
Just when you think we can't take on one more thing, we have this pursuit here. The CHP really hasn't been a factor in the issues that we've been covering today with the looting and the unrest and the devastation, because it's really not their jurisdiction to cover, say, a city of Santa Monica. So here we are on the freeways with a CHP pursuit.
We just moved on the southbound 57.
Okay, heading towards Orange County area there, deeper in Orange County there. Okay, so the issue is a failure to yield, speeds at over 100 miles per hour. It is eerie, Alex, to see the freeway so dark and so open, even though during the pandemic we've had a few pursuits. We've seen dark freeways, not a lot of cars. Even late at night, we've seen situations like this. But this, to me, you can feel how eerie it is right now.
How eerie and and that the city itself looks darker than it usually does as we are now under curfew. And you think about LA County, one of the biggest counties in the country, 10 million people all under curfew orders tonight. It is an extraordinary moment in the history of LA County. So what we're going to do, because there is so much other important news tonight, we're going to keep that pursuit in a box on your screen. So you can see it up at the left corner, and if you're one of those people that love watching pursuits, you can follow that. If there's a dramatic development in that pursuit, we will go back to it. We'll show it to you. Hopefully we will show you a successful, safe end to that pursuit. Meanwhile, we're going to continue on with our coverage in the other box on your screen. We're going to go to Bill Melugin now, who joins us with his story. And you had an interesting experience today with one of these looters.
Yeah, Alex, we certainly did. And what I want to show our viewers tonight is just how far these looters went inland from the Santa Monica 3rd Street Promenade area. This is a big 5, 2 miles inland from 3rd Street Promenade. Sam, if we can take a look in really quick. They hit this place really hard. They cleaned out all the sunglasses, busted all the windows, and they wiped a lot of stuff out of this place. Just up the street from us, they also hit a Bevmo. LAPD has been guarding it. And just to give you some perspective of where we are, Sam, if we can pan to that Bevmo and the traffic light up there, that's where West LA begins and Santa Monica City ends. So again, those looters had to walk all the way from the 3rd Street Promenade to where we are right now, which is about 2.2 miles. And we saw looted businesses all along the entire way, which brings me to this video we're about to show you right now, if we can pull it up. This was near Wilshire and 26th Street. LAPD saw a group of looters hitting a New Balance shoe store. A car full of looters took off, but one of the looters couldn't get in time, and he took off running. LAPD chased him down to around a corner. We followed LAPD as they chased this looter. The looter tried to get away. LAPD caught up to him. He surrendered, and then police tackled him there on the spot, took him into custody without further incident. Now, I had an opportunity to talk to this looter, and he was very candid in his reasons for being out. Take a listen. All right, man, we saw you at the New Balance store. Why you out here?
Man, period, point blank, just like all my real ones trying to get some money. Explanation, that's it. Trying to get some dough, that's it.
Just out here for the money?
Yeah, pretty much.
Anything to do with the protests, what happened in Minnesota?
I mean, a little bit to do with that too, you feel me? But not really. I'm out here for the dough.
Was it worth it?
Obviously not. I'm out here hemmed up. Yeah, y'all see it. Man, if y'all gonna get some money, do it right. Don't do it the dumb way. Do it the smart way. Yeah.
Thanks for your time, man. Best of luck to you. And then just about an hour and a half after that, in the exact same spot, we saw police chasing another looter. Take a look at this. This looter had a bunch of electronics. He dropped it in the middle of the street, and then he took off running down an alley. And then Culver City police and LAPD police chased him. They went in all different directions to chase him. They eventually caught him. He tried to get into somebody's front yard a few blocks away, and they caught him, and they took him down there. But this was what we were doing most of our evening, was watching these looters running around all over the place with police playing a game of whack-a-mole, trying to catch them as often as they could. Now back out here live, as you take a look at this Big Five, they're going to have a huge mess to wake up to in the morning here. Again, these looters got in very far inland from Santa Monica. We still see some of them walking around the area, not nearly in the numbers that we saw hours ago, but they are still out here. They're kind of skulking in the shadows. Police are still driving around doing their patrols. They're going to be doing that the rest of the night, but I live in Santa Monica. Everything by my apartment is absolutely trashed. By that Vons where Coco has been, where Phil has been, it looks like it's been bombed. It's insane. I mean, every single business in some parts of town have been looted, ransacked, destroyed. Alarms are going off everywhere, just like this. It's a really bizarre scene, and it's a really sad scene.
Very interesting, Bill, to hear from that young man who was just candid and raw with you and just gave you that interview right there. Shed some light on what's going on here. All right, Bill, thank you so much. We're going to check in with Christina Gonzalez, who is downtown right now, and we've seen a lot of arrests down there too, Christina.
Yes, actually, and to check in things, can you hear that there's no helicopters and no sirens? It's actually, they're still around, but things definitely calming down, as you see behind us, City Hall, an eerie sight with all the National Guard around it. We went through the day, though, talking to people and asking people why, if getting arrested was worth it, why they stayed, and what was going through their hearts. So we wanted to share that with you. Listen. Was this worth it?
Absolutely.
Why?
Why? Like I haven't dealt with the police before. Come on now. I love these guys. They know me. I don't know if they love me back, but they know me.
We come back here, we show up another day, we're not as stronger, right? We need to keep going, and I don't think that we should leave. I don't think that anybody should leave. I think it's part of making a point.
And again, that kind of explains from their point of view what it's like to stay here. No looting downtown Los Angeles tonight that we are aware of. No injuries to law enforcement that we are aware of. And things definitely still a lot of patrols to make sure things stay calm, but a lot calmer at this point in downtown Los Angeles. Back to you guys.
Yeah, Christina, is it a bit eerie being in downtown right now?
You know, it's suddenly quiet, which is nice in a way, considering what we've been through. I think yes and no. I think considering that it has been, especially for the residents here, because remember, all these people who live downtown, it has been nonstop for them. So to have some calm, they can probably go to sleep to is probably okay. For us, it is a little bit eerie, especially with the National Guard, very reminiscent of '92.
Yeah, all
actually.
right.
And to see the City Hall lit up in blue there behind you, Christina.
And so as we continue that coverage, we just want to remind people that the strangeness of all this continues. We've got a police pursuit underway. That's at the top of your screen right now. Now we look at this full screen and we look at this police pursuit that goes through the streets. The car, wow, uh-oh. Okay, now just as we go there, is going to be going the wrong way. Is this on the freeway now going against traffic? This is when things get really dangerous, or maybe going on an off-ramp here. What's happening? Okay, so they just changed directions. Looks like they're going on an overpass, going onto a different freeway. Wow.
Yeah, so this has been out of the City of Industry in one point on the 57 freeway, got off the freeway, got back on the freeway, and that bizarre move there. But we talked about really, Alex, given the pandemic, people have been at home, given this situation with the curfew, people are at home, that it's eerie to be seeing this here with these streets so empty. Okay, the person got off the freeway now, and back onto surface streets. We've seen this before on Brea.
And they got off the 57 freeway, and you see the police right behind that person as they drive. So we are going to continue this, and we are following this in. We're going to put this up on a box on the screen, and whenever anything breaks on this, we will get back to it. But now we're going to go to Coco McAvoy, who is in Santa Monica, which is the scene of just devastation. She joins us now from inside a store. Coco.
Good evening. That's right. Devastation really is the best way to put this. We are still inside of the Vons here, giving you more angles of what this looks like in here. So you can see that it appears people smashed into a lot of these glass doors. However, they don't appear to have taken anything. It seems like people were smashing bottles. You can see here Pepsi, Mountain Dew, also Hershey's bars, and it appears like maybe a beer bottle also was broken here. And just trash. The complete store is trash here. Every aisle you walk through, you can see some form of destruction. And it makes you wonder how many people were in here at the time. Now, we're seeing security guards go in and out of here as well, just really surveying damage, making sure that there's no one inside of the stores. But as we mentioned, it's just really security guards coming in and out of here. Santa Monica police, they're still posted up outside of the store as well, just to make sure that people don't come inside. As we've been out here, we have seen a few people still out and about, but every time they spot the Santa Monica Police Department, they end up turning around, either running or quickly walking away to make sure that they do not end up getting arrested. So there are some people still out here on the streets, but again, there's going to be a lot of cleanup ahead here, and there's no telling exactly how much inventory was lost. But as I look around, it appears that there's still a lot of inventory here. But obviously, it's not usable anymore after being smashed to the ground. So this is really telling of the damage in Santa Monica. As you walk the streets, you see the stores. We've gone inside other stores, peeked inside other stores, and you could really see that people are going to have a lot of cleanup ahead of them. And not all of the stores that are damaged are big stores like Vons. Some of these stores are mom and pop shops. You know, I had people reach out to me on Twitter asking me about certain businesses as well, to ask if those businesses are still intact following the protest and then what turned into something else here this evening. I'm going to throw it back to you.
Yeah, and you think of so many of those mom and pop stores, Coco and Christine, that were so devastated by coronavirus that we're just getting the go-ahead to reopen slowly, and now they're going to have to deal with this. So much. You feel for all of them. Coco, thank you so much. As we continue to follow this pursuit now that makes its way through Orange County. Are we still in Orange County now? As we drive you know, at very high speeds on the freeway.
Yeah, back on the freeway. This car has gotten on and off the freeway a couple of times. We talk so much about people going to an area that is comfortable to them. They were off, I think, at Brea Canyon, then back on the freeway, and then back off at Brea again, if I have that right. We're keeping a watch on this one. They have been going at speeds of over 100 miles per hour, which you could do with an open freeway quite easily and not endanger anybody. But to think of all that we are going through already with just this devastation in our community, and then you have somebody involved in a pursuit. It's just really a lot to deal with today, Alex.
It's a lot. It's been a long day. I think you and I have been on the air for 11 hours now straight without taking a commercial break. It's been one of those days that we'll never forget. And we both were on 9 hours last night without taking a commercial break, and both of these were supposed to be our days off. So these are the 7th day in a row that we have been working. Obviously, so many people, not complaining, so many people have been through so much worse than what we're doing.
We're in
we see a
Diamond
pit maneuver. There's a pit maneuver.
We're in Diamond Bar right now.
Okay, so we just saw that pit maneuver.
Right?
The guy's out of the car and running, it looked like. Maybe somebody came out of the passenger car that was running. I wonder if there are multiple people in that car. Okay, now this person on foot running through the streets. We see police now running after this person. That person's going pretty fast.
Yeah.
Fast in the car and fast on his foot. That's going to be challenging for officers now. They do have, of course, the assistance of the helicopter in the sky putting a light, but you got to think that there may be more officers on this sort of thing offering backup on a normal night, but because so many officers are stressed, that's going to may make it harder to have sort of the overwhelming force that you usually would see in a high-speed pursuit. So this guy now running through a neighborhood with the light on him. Look at this, running out of space, jumping over.
Whoa.
Wow.
We saw two people that we thought might have been with the pursuit, but it looks like they were innocent people because they kind of clung on to each other as police went chasing after this person here. That night sun, though, is really light. There we go. Person's down. Person's down. Okay, they are complying, but boy, that person was really fast. You have to think that maybe a police car came from another direction to get closer to the suspect following that night sun. Yeah, right there. There's a police car.
That person ran like an athlete. I mean, that was quite something to see, and that was quite a jump that we saw. What I'm not sure of, were there multiple people that came out of that car? I mean, it looked to me, and I'm looking at a small monitor and I'm looking at it quickly, that person may have came out of the passenger side of that car, but maybe there was only one person on in that car.
Well, this person wanted for failure to yield, speed, and paper plates. They were going over 110 miles an hour at one point. Started in City of Industry, then went through the Diamond Bar area, which is where we are right now. And that pursuit came to an end with that suspect there in custody.
You think about that. Failure to yield would lead to all of that. Now all of the additional charges this person is going to be facing. All right. So we had a police pursuit in the midst of everything else that has been happening tonight, a night that we will not soon forget, Christine Devine. So now we'll check in with Rick Lozano. He is in Orange County. Thankfully, things have been pretty peaceful where he has been in Santa Ana, although there were some challenges earlier in Huntington Beach.
That's right. Alex, Christine, good evening, everyone. We are in a very quiet, surprisingly quiet Santa Ana. The 10 p.m. curfew is now in effect. There are still groups of police officers scattered throughout the city, but they've done an excellent job in flushing the more than 800 protesters out of the immediate downtown area. And I think they employed a very good strategy in that they gathered most of their resources in the center of the city and allowed the protesters to come to them. And then, and I'm no trained expert, but it just seemed to me that that put them in a position to then flush them out in all directions. And now the 10 p.m. curfew is in effect, and we see nary a protester in sight. Now, it's been a busy day for us here in Orange County, from Santa Ana to Huntington Beach, where there was a protest earlier today. It started at noon, and again, Huntington Beach Police, together with Orange County Sheriff's reinforcements, were able to flush those protesters off PCH in either direction, north and south, and get them out of any position where they could have created some harm, and they were able to disperse those protesters there. We're going to move over here because we're right in front of a business here in Santa Ana, and here is a gentleman who owns what's the name of your business? First of all, let me get your name.
My name is Joe Khalil.
So, Joe, what's the name of your business here?
Main Sound.
Okay, and you have, and I'm going to get onto the camera here so that Gino can pan around and show the army of fellas that you have here, because you're not going to have any of the destruction that you saw play out in other parts of Santa Ana.
And we were kind of prepared for this one. We knew what was going on. And then once we heard that they're going to start breaking windows from Original Mike's and a couple of the shops, we came in here. We knew that the police couldn't handle everything. We had to be here in force. We had to help out. So we know these vandals come down here, and we had to protect our own shop.
And you did that by boarding up and by manning it yourself.
Absolutely, 100%.
So what do you think? What are your thoughts as to how this is all played out? There was serious destruction and looting in downtown Santa Ana last night. Obviously, these protesters aren't all from here. What are your thoughts on the way these protests have played out?
All the mom and pop shops are just going to take a hit, and everybody's saying, "Oh, the insurance will pay." Insurance is not going to pay you right there. It's the time and and it's just the time to put into the shop that we had to, the process. It's just we're over it.
Are you disgusted with everything?
100%. I'm devastated with what's going on with the COVID-19. Now this happens, we can't handle it anymore.
All right. Take care of yourself. Stay safe. Keep your business protected. Again, very busy day here in Orange County. We started the day in Huntington Beach. Things played out there. Things are back to normal as far as we know. Here in Santa Ana, again, officers did a really, really good job under the circumstances in flushing all the protesters out. The curfew is now in effect and will be until 5:30 tomorrow morning. We're live in Santa Ana. I'm Rick Lozano. We'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Rick. Interesting to hear from that gentleman who talked about it's not about the insurance, if it can or can't replace your business. It's the time and the heart and soul, really, that people have put into their businesses. All right, the mayor spoke earlier today, and we have his words on what's going on, really, in our city with the curfew and the protests and the rioting.
Today, we saw peaceful protests across the Southland and throughout this nation. We also saw images of looting and violence that are nothing to do with our protest. Criminals are wrong to think that they can hijack this message, undermine this movement, and divide us. They will not. So to those who are hurting, we hear you. And to those who are acting criminally by smashing windows and looting, we see what you are doing and we will arrest you. Angelenos have it in our hearts to look out for one another. We've seen heroes stand in front of stores refusing to let them be looted. We've seen communities come together to clean sidewalks in front of damaged buildings, businesses that were to reopen this weekend and provide jobs for people who haven't had a paycheck, folks who have cleared graffiti off of synagogues, who want to reclaim their neighborhoods. We've seen people peacefully protest and refuse to let a pure message of nonviolence become co-opted by those who think that violence is the answer. It is never the answer. And we've seen people follow the lead of a great hero, John Lewis, who called on this nation this weekend to be constructive, not destructive, to follow the footsteps of Dr. King, to bend the arc of history towards justice, to march peacefully and powerfully for freedom and equality, and to meet hate with hope. You see, we are a great city, and we are at our greatest when we are a good city. We can be a great country, and we are our greatest when we're a good country. And we have the capacity, each one of us, to be great people, but only when we are good people. As we wrestle with the demons of racism and brutality, as we see violence around us, we must find our better angels. And I know that we will. So please, stay safe and observe the curfew. Please go home and stay there. And may strength and love for one another guide us. As always, Los Angeles. Good evening.
That was the mayor of Los Angeles there, Eric Garcetti. Of course, Mayor Garcetti is one of 85 different mayors in LA County. And we're hearing from the mayor of Beverly Hills some news here. They have now extended their curfew till tomorrow and Tuesday, already making that announcement that they have a curfew in place in the business district at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, essentially shutting down business in the middle of the day, trying to keep some of those very expensive stores from being looted tomorrow. Their curfew for the general public, the whole city, starts at 4 o'clock tomorrow in the afternoon. So Beverly Hills basically saying to everybody to basically stay away for the next 2 days, trying to protect that community. Santa Monica is a community that had a hard time protecting itself today. Unfortunately, the reality tonight in Santa Monica is pretty bleak. Phil Schuman has been walking around, checking out the damage, and it's pretty extensive, Phil.
Well, we're live at 4th and Broadway. Now, Mayor Garcetti may have been quoting John Lewis about being constructive, not destructive. They certainly were not listening to that in Santa Monica earlier. You can still see the vans, boxes littering the sidewalk while they board up the windows that 8 hours ago were just smashed and the store was looted. We were here. We covered it live. Let's take a look back. Chaos in Santa Monica. We're at 4th and Broadway. Active looting going on. What are you doing?
Oh, somebody gave me this.
Somebody gave you that. Somebody gave that woman that. This is, what store is this? We're at the corner of, like I mentioned, 4th and Broadway, Santa Monica Place. It's the past couple of hours. Look at this store. Alex, Santa Monica police are here, but they're not right here. The fire department's here, Culver City Police, LAPD. This store has been emptied out. Hey, why are you taking all of this? There is not one police officer in sight here. This has been going on for at least a couple of hours. Again, Santa Monica Place right here. There's people looting all of these stores. This is the Van store. We saw Coco with a group of protesters. Hey, excuse me, you're stealing that merchandise? There's not one police officer here. There's not one National Guard member here. There's not one sheriff's deputy here. This is one of the highest profile areas in Santa Monica. This protest has been planned all day. Excuse me, where did you get that? Where did you get that merchandise? What do you have here? You don't have that. People have just cleaned out this store.
Just seconds before, there was like 4 cops on bikes here and they just pulled away. Obviously, there's something more important.
So you're saying the police weren't here?
They were right here on motorcycles and they just rode away.
So, I know you were talking about a curfew, Alex, but nobody here is paying attention to that, just like they didn't pay attention to it last night. Remarkable scene. Again, 8 hours ago, this store, the Van store, you can see the aftermath of the looting. The folks from the plywood boarding company are working outside. You can maybe hear the hammering in the background. And it just was remarkable. Alex and Christine, you were on with me. Just wave after wave of people in this store. I'm surprised that there's actually anything left. And as you heard at the time, police were nowhere to be found. And this went on for easily an hour. This is some of the worst devastation in the beginning of the afternoon here in Santa Monica. And as we come back outside live, you see the intersection is pretty much deserted. Isolated patrols, Santa Monica Police, National Guards, people on the corner. And tomorrow morning, the huge focus is going to be on a cleanup. We saw it on the Fairfax earlier today, right? In the Fairfax district earlier today, it was a good feeling because people from the community mobilized with brooms and other materials to clean up, to rebuild. So maybe we'll see that here tomorrow. But there's really two stories that went on here, Alex and Christine. One was the looting and destruction, and the second was the fact that law enforcement was essentially unprepared and unable to control it.
So are you seeing a number of businesses that have been or are being boarded up tonight?
Oh, yeah. That's what we've been talking about. This one, the Van store at 4th and Broadway, across the street, another business being boarded up on Lincoln, where we were earlier when we were at that CVS. You remember we interviewed the gym owner, Luke. His business was being boarded up. Yeah, they're on top of it right now. And tomorrow, when daylight comes, we'll see more of the cleanup efforts and the assessment of the damage. The numbers are going to be staggering. The dollar amounts of damage to the city of Santa Monica is going to be a huge number.
All right, Phil Shuman, thank you for your continued excellent work out there. We'll continue to talk to you during our 11 o'clock hour, which we are about to begin. We're going to recap some of the top stories of the day as we push into our next hour of coverage. The Fox 11 News at 11 p.m. starts right now. Tonight, breaking news. The looting continues from Santa Monica to Long Beach on a day that started with peaceful protests.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
Protests facing off with police as hundreds of looters run away with arms full and no officers in sight. Some protesters stepping in, risking their own lives to stop the violence. In downtown LA, this very close call with a cruiser.
Images of a nation coming apart. We must not let them win.
We're covering all the events from LA County to the OC. Our special coverage on Fox 11 begins right now. And we welcome you to the 11 p.m. hour of Fox 11 News. I'm Alex Michelson.
And I'm Christine Devine. We have been on the air for about 11 hours here trying to cover another day of violence here in Los Angeles. We want to show you the developments throughout the day. At 11 p.m. right now, we can talk about that curfew in place for LA County. Different communities and cities have been implementing their own curfew times. Beverly Hills Business District, we just learned, 1 p.m. to 5:30 a.m. Citywide, 4 to 5:30 a.m. Okay, we talked about looting, right? Widespread looting across L.A. County from Santa Monica to Long Beach and trouble in downtown L.A. A busy night of fires in Long Beach tonight. The National Guard arriving in Santa Monica. And a reminder that Good Day L.A. is on at 4 a.m. tomorrow with the very latest as well.
We begin in the 11 o'clock hour with Long Beach, especially hit tonight by riots, looters, destruction. Susan Hirasuna was literally in the middle of all of that. She joins us live now. Susan.
Yeah, and we're a couple of blocks away from the fire that we brought you earlier, and we were looking for another one because one of the firefighters suggested there was another one around this area. And frankly, to bring you back to the 5 o'clock hour, this is where we started, where we saw all of those Long Beach police artillery, armored vehicles and whatnot. I want to show you this vape store, the CBD store, because frankly, when we were here earlier, we saw 2 security guards. And if you thought any place could be secure, it would be this place. Not only were there 2 security guards, but you've got this iron gate. So somehow the looters were able to get through the door, so this is all broken, and then through this. So they lift up the gate, or somebody very tiny was able to get through. And when we went back to the truck around 9:30 or so, I noticed that there were people coming out of the back door of this store, and they were very casually carrying bags and boxes worth of stuff. I noticed that there was one item that they had that had a long hose, which I'm not that familiar with that kind of paraphernalia, but I think it has something to do with smoking marijuana or CBD or what have you. So this is just one example of the kind of looting that we've had here in a few blocks, square blocks of Long Beach. Now, what we also keep hearing are concussive explosions. I heard a succession of explosions, 8 of them. And then Carlos, my photographer, and I experienced our own way too close. Take a listen. Up the wall.
Whoa! Oh. You okay, Susan?
Okay, I was a little too close to that.
Are you okay?
I'm okay, but I am okay, but I heard the concussion. And Carlos is not okay.
Okay.
Carlos,
All right.
my photographer, is down.
Oh, okay. Susan, please take care of yourself.
Take care of
do
Carlos.
Do what you need to do.
And get back to us and let us know if there's anything we can do to help him.
All right, well, Carlos is fine. He sat down because he felt the concussion to his head, and he sat down. He felt a little dizzy. I felt it against my shirt, and it was very close, so it was very loud. But both of us are fine, and we've continued on. But that's the kind of thing that we keep hearing. We keep hearing more and more of those cherry bombs, some of them very close indeed. I'm not seeing where they're being set off. I just can tell that they are pretty close. So in this little 4 or 5 block square area of Long Beach, there seems to be still a lot of activity, even though we are under curfew orders now. There still are a lot of police here and fire, but and so it goes on. I just have no other explanation. We are seeing people on the street. They shouldn't be here. But police aren't really doing very much for them. They are protecting certain areas, like that area where we witnessed all the looting and the Ross being broken into. There's still police at last check. They're still there just securing that intersection. And so that is pretty much it. It is getting quieter, certainly quieter. We spent the last few hours just hearing sirens back and forth and watching police cars go this way and then later come back this way. It's a very odd evening indeed. Alex, Christine?
Susan, I think it's interesting to talk about sort of the why of all of this is happening as well. For you as somebody who spent time talking to those looters and talking to people as this happened, has it changed your understanding at all in terms of their motivation and what may be prompting all of this?
Oh, let me be very clear. I always understood what they were talking about. I understood, I didn't condone, but I've long had these conversations, including with my older son, about the inequities in our society, about the fact that people of color are oftentimes targeted and are the focus of police attention when perhaps they shouldn't be. And so I understand. And it is coming at a very interesting time in our history when you think that there have been so many people that have been financially hurt by the coronavirus pandemic, so many people that have been out of work. So the fact that they could get something in this time period was enough for them to think that it was just perfectly okay. But as you and I discussed earlier, you know, what would your grandmother say? And perhaps maybe their grandmother would be more understanding than I. If it were my son that I saw go into one of these stores and collect things by the armful, I would be just heartbroken, as I already am. Alex, Christine.
Susan, perspective as a mother and a veteran journalist here at Fox 11 News, we thank you so much for your coverage, and always glad to see that Carlos is safe and able to shoot these live shots, and he's doing okay, no problem. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to go to another area now. Widespread looting, fires, and mobs of vandals have taken over what started out as a day of peaceful protest. It was beautiful to see earlier today.
Yeah, and one of the most beautiful parts of the entire country, Santa Monica, is where Coco McAvoy is. She's been out there all day long. Coco.
Yes, Alex, Christine, I've moved to 6th Street now, outside of Goodwill, just to give you another idea of another store that's been targeted here. So you can see that there's glass here. This glass wasn't broken, but right here, the glass was broken, possibly a way that people got in and then ended up opening the door here. And when you walk inside, you can just see the devastation inside of this store as well. This is another store that's going to have a big cleanup ahead. And Goodwill, of course, is a community store, a place where people can go to shop and find things for affordable prices. So it's sad to see this store in this condition here. But something else I want to point out is that there is a security camera up here. So you wonder if someone was watching as all of this was happening and what thoughts were going through their mind. But to see the devastation in here really brings me back to a moment earlier today. A woman who didn't want to see something like this happen at a store. She does not work for the store. She does not know the owners for the store. But she decided to defend the REI store a few blocks from where we are because she said she didn't want the message to be lost, that this is about George Floyd. Take a listen and watch what unfolded. Hey guys, you see this? Okay, do you guys want to come back to us? Hey, do you guys want to come back to us? Yes, this is really quite a scene. It's called recreational equipment it seems right now. REI actually is what this business is, and it's really quite a scene unfolding here. You can see that there was someone with really some kind of weapon trying to break into the store, and this woman here with a sign saying "End all violence" literally shielded the store. And at one point it put her in a really dangerous position because people were trying to push her at that point. Okay, now someone just flew. Yeah. So yeah, it's getting a little hostile here. As you can see, this woman, though, is very brave. She has not moved from her spot. She is still defending this store, even though someone literally threw some type of device at her. She did not move. And so now there's another man who's right there with her, trying to guard her and defend her. We're going to try to talk to these people about why they did this. Hi, if you could tell us about why you decided to stay here and defend this store.
Because it doesn't need to get looted. That's not what this is about.
United we stand.
We are here for the protest, but when we see people looting, it defeats the cause. So we decided we would come here, and when we see anything happen, any violence or anything that shouldn't happen, we're going to try our best to stop it. REI doesn't need to get broken into. They have nothing to do with anything.
And at one point, I mean, you got pushed. You also had something, explosive type of device thrown at both of you.
He threatened to pull a gun on me. Thank God that, like, I was able to tell him, Carrie, you're not supposed to do that. I told him, like, you need to back off. And I was also recording. Once he saw the phone and that he knew I was carrying, he stopped and he left.
And And something else that was interesting after I talked to Natalie and Zishan, they were telling me that that was their mission today, that they wanted to make sure that the message was not lost among all of the looting and some of the violence that ended up sparking at the peaceful protest. But I do want to show you this area here. This is obviously the Goodwill counter, and the registers are gone. We don't know where they are. You can see monitors were thrown. But apparently in this case, people were going after money. And as we were driving down the street earlier today, we did see a few people who had registers in their hands. So obviously a situation that just got out of control here at the Goodwill.
And Coco,
back to you.
I love that Goodwill. I was so looking forward to the Goodwill's opening with the stores opening with the coronavirus pandemic. But I got to ask you about those two who stood in front of that store with that person, a guy, all dressed in black with a hammer. He looked very prepared. Did they have any perspective? Is this guy like an organized kind of guy? Like we talk about Antifa.
You know, and it was all happening so fast that I wasn't able to tell what side he was on. It was just a situation that was unfolding before my eyes, and I just couldn't believe that that woman, Natalie, had such bravery with someone who had a hammer, a weapon, and someone who yanked her and pushed her and then threw a firework at her, and she continued to stay in front of that store. It did not faze her.
One of so many brave people that we have seen throughout the day today. And Coco, your bravery has really been extraordinary to see. Just sort of the relentlessness, hour after hour, continuing to tell people's stories. We appreciate all the work that you and Julio Duran have been doing all day, too. Thank you, Coco. The looting, the violence, it's not just here in Southern California. The unrest spreading across the country tonight.
Violence erupting across Chicago today with looting in the city and the suburbs. Public transit was shut down abruptly to keep people out of the city center, but fires continued to break out. One person was shot and killed at the North Riverside Mall during looting there. In Aurora, Illinois, shots were reported fired at an armored police vehicle as we are continuing to watch these protests here.
Philadelphia experiencing a second day of looting and fires. This Target hit just minutes before curfew. It took effect at 6 o'clock tonight there. Vandals also attacking police cars, smashing windows, and in one case, setting a police SUV on fire. Officers reported to have been hit by rocks, bricks, Molotov cocktails. 5 officers injured in that city.
And then we have this situation in Minneapolis. Look right there, a big rig truck driving into a crowd of protesters on the highway this evening. That truck slamming through the crowd at a high speed, honking his horn. Well, the truck got onto the highway after authorities had closed it down for fears of further unrest. The crowd pulled the man out of the truck, but a group of men protected that driver, saying hurting him would only defeat their purpose. That driver was arrested. He was not badly hurt.
Before I get to our next story, a bit of breaking news just into our newsroom. The LAPD tweeting out that there has been an officer-involved shooting in the area of Melrose Avenues and North Wilton Place. They don't have a lot of details there. Public information officer is headed there. We're going to try to get more information, try to get Sky Fox over there as well. But more breaking news tonight. Again, an officer-involved shooting just happening, announced by the Los Angeles Police Department. More now on some of the other stories of the day. Hundreds of shop owners had the grim task of returning to their stores damaged by rioters and looters last night in the Fairfax district. Our cameras were there. You're looking now at a looter. This is an amazing moment, who actually stole from Round 2, which is a men's clothing store in Melrose Avenue in the Fairfax district. He went back there today and gave the owner of Round 2 the very clothes that he stole. Gigi Graciette was there as it happened.
Said he felt bad, you know, that he looted last night. He said he was homeless. Didn't have much to say other than that.
How about that? What a moment, sort of a moment of humanity in a day where we haven't had enough of them.
Other store owners along Melrose Avenue wasted little time trying to clean up their shops. Just a sample here of what business owners found today. The windows broken, glass all over the floor, such a mess. Some locals in that area did their part. They stopped by. They joined the owners to help in the cleanup. Look at that there.
Amount of people that helped us today
was really good. People helped us do the glass. You saw myself how everybody was really passionate about it. I had all my neighbors. We've been doing this business for 6 years here in the neighborhood. I have the neighbors, they came, they checked on us. They came, they said if you need help with the glass, if you need help with everything, everybody was really good.
Even though I wasn't looting yesterday, like I also wasn't out there trying to stop looting. And so I feel some sort of shared responsibility in it. And these guys are innocent, you know, like most of these shops are small shops. It's not like a big Target, you know, and they're struggling too.
Here's surveillance video from that smoke and vape depot of the looters in action. Look, so many inside. They say this location alone, they lost $200,000 worth of goods.
Meanwhile, in Beverly Hills, some shop owners returning to their looted and damaged stores today were almost too emotional to speak.
The Beverly Hills city came to us and they said, you need to take down all the boarding because this is not the way we want Beverly Hills to look like, or you're going to get fined. So we took it down. We prepared the store so that we can open up and then, you know, welcome our clients and friends. And I've been here for over 27 years. And then now I organize the store so that I can open, and then I see things missing, racks, jewelry, dresses, clothes.
That was Paul Attu, the owner of Paul Attu, a high-end fashion boutique. After being closed for weeks due to coronavirus, they were set to open up tomorrow.
Alex,
and then this.
I know those designers, Paul and Patrick, and I can tell you they were the designers I was talking about earlier who had made a bunch of masks to take to a women's homeless shelter during the pandemic. And Patrick had messaged me tonight earlier that they've just been gutted. They lost so much. And I saw a shot that he sent me, and it was of the mannequin on the floor with one of the gowns that they make, and the mask was on the mannequin on the ground. Wow. It just makes me so sad to think of people who've worked so hard to just have a business. That is a private, small business right there.
And then you think about what's going to happen tomorrow. So we are getting word that there's going to be a protest planned at the federal building in Westwood tomorrow at 4 o'clock. I'm hearing that several businesses in that area are preparing for that and hoping that that does not get out of hand. We're seeing some online chatter about potentially Van Nuys being the scene of a protest tomorrow. The question tonight is, have we seen the end of these agitators, of the looting, of the Antifa, of all the rest of that, and will we just have the peaceful protests, or will some of this violence continue up against tomorrow?
I've been watching that chatter as well, seeing people go back and forth about targeting certain areas or not for whatever reasons. But it's interesting how social media does play such a role in all of this, of complete strangers connecting, reaching out, talking to one another, trying to talk down one another as well.
Social media so often is the best of us and the worst of us at the same time, just sort of exacerbates some of our best and worst tendencies. So we're going to continue to follow what's been happening tonight. Some of the worst looting and violence tonight taking place in Santa Monica, where there's widespread devastation. And I know our crews on the scene have talked about the fact that social media contributed to this, in that people would talk, let's hit this store, let's hit that store, police are coming, and there was a whole communication between people on social media to coordinate these looting experiences.
The pro and con of social media in this era. Phil Shuman's been covering the situation in Santa Monica all day and all night for us. Phil, one more thing do you have for us tonight?
Well, we're live on 4th Street and Broadway. You see what's left of this storefront of Santa Monica Jewelry and Loan. This was smashed out by looters earlier this afternoon. Fortunately, they weren't able to breach the metal security gate of this store. And this is just up the street from the beginning of all of this. Remember, this began as a peaceful protest this morning, and then we'll go to some video from Skyfox. This was about 1 o'clock this afternoon, between 1 and 2 o'clock, as dozens of people stormed the Santa Monica Place Mall. They smashed the windows of a Louis Vuitton store, several other high-end shops there. Now, that mall was blocked by a gated barrier, those metal barricades stand on the sidewalk, but the crowd quickly got through those. And again, Skyfox was overhead. Santa Monica police are obviously watching this one too. They responded quickly and dispersed that crowd. Then they came here to the corner of 4th and Broadway. We earlier told you about the looting of the Vans store. A couple of hours after that, some more dramatic video. This was in the intersection of 6th and Broadway, I believe, where a fire broke out at a restaurant there. And then a huge crowd turned out and for a short time prevented the fire department from doing their job. And then the sheriff's department came in with reinforcements, including this armored vehicle with a water cannon on top. They opened that up on the crowd. I'd never seen that before. They were throwing flashbang grenades at the crowd, and they took back control of that intersection, let the fire department do their job. So just a very chaotic scene most of the day here in Santa Monica. And as we come back live, Christina and Alex, I guess the sound of sirens has been replaced by the sound of drills. How you guys doing? Good. Busy tonight, right? A little bit. How many stores have you done so far? One. This is the first. This is the first one. They'll be working all night. This is that Vans store, Vans shoes at the corner of 4th and Broadway. Well, I spoke too soon. Now we hear the sirens again. This looks like an ambulance and a fire engine coming west on Broadway to 4th Street.
Wow. It seems to just never end, as we're now in the 11 o'clock hour.
Yeah, it's going to be another long night in Southern California. Law enforcement certainly doesn't rest.
And I'm starting to see online and from a lot of different viewers of potential problems that are breaking out in the Inland Empire, an area we haven't talked about very much tonight. Trying to get some more information about that. We hope that these looters are not on the move headed towards other parts of Southern California tonight. Even those that were arrested, many of them we do not believe were even brought into jail. So they may be able to just go to another part of the community tonight. Let's hope that's not happening. Phil Shuman, thank you. Bill Melugin, not too far from where you are, the other end of Santa Monica, Christine. We're all working hard and trying to get information at this point.
I'm getting information right now that I'm just trying to verify 100% about another area of concern right now. So if I get this information 1,000% confirmed, I'm going to bring it to you.
Yeah, Bill Melugin back in Santa Monica. Let's go to him now. Bill.
Alex, we just heard Phil Shuman talking about Santa Monica Place, which is where all the looting first began here in the city today. That's where we are tonight. Much different scene now. You can see some of the shattered glass here. Again, this is where all the looting started today, but now look who's guarding it. We have the National Guard here setting up shop overnight. They are stretching all around 3rd Street Promenade, all around these areas that were hit today. And remember, they're here as a stationary force to guard locations. They're not out making arrests or chasing down looters. They're here to guard static locations like this. Now, I want to pull up a couple of photos that we took tonight in Santa Monica of business owners who are deciding to take things into their own hands when it comes to their protection. These are a couple of businesses we passed by where owners were either on the rooftop or standing out in front with long guns, with rifles. They decided they were going to take the responsibility of defending their own businesses when we were at the climax of the looting, because police just could not be everywhere at once. So this obviously had echoes of what we saw back in 1992 with the Koreans on the rooftop. We saw some of that here in Santa Monica tonight. Now, not everybody was out there with guns, but we saw a lot of business owners just posting up in front of their businesses, arms crossed, staring at everybody who walked by, and just kind of doing a show of force in front of their businesses to make sure that if someone was going to try to come loot their spot, they weren't going to have it happen without some sort of a fight. So as we sign out from here in Santa Monica, thankfully, it's eerily kind of quiet now, other than the alarms buzzing that you can hear at all these stores that have been broken into. But the chaos finally at least looks like it's over here in Santa Monica tonight, and these fine soldiers from the National Guard here are going to keep an eye on things overnight. Send it back to you.
I know so many concerned about their livelihood and their business, and the shot that you showed us there of someone with their weapon protecting their business is something that we saw in the 1992 riots. And I remember being, for example, driving through Koreatown, which was a hot spot at that time, and just to see people on their businesses with their weapons was just so very eerie and so very scary. Let me ask you, where you're at right now, what are your thoughts on covering things at this hour? You've been out there for 2 days now.
Well, today was especially bizarre for me because I live here. I mean, I live 4 blocks down the street from where all of this was going on. So it went from me watching on TV all the stores that I go to being burned, looted, and ransacked to actually coming out here and covering it myself. What do I think? I think it's disappointing. I think that there's been a lot of really good protesting that has been going on where things are peaceful, and I think that these detractors, these opportunists they're mastering this to a science. They're waiting for these protests to march, and they're peaceful and they're perfectly fine, and they're using that as kind of a smokescreen to, hey, everybody's focusing on this protest. It looks great. Well, let's slip through the back door and go do what we want to do. And that's what we saw here at Santa Monica Place today. Remember, there was a perfectly peaceful march going on Ocean Boulevard just a half mile away from us, and then all of a sudden reports of looting come in at the Van store, at the Promenade, and here at Santa Monica Place. And that was a completely different crowd than what we saw marching. Where they came from, I don't know. We've seen all these cars coming and going out of the city when the loot. I mean, the looter that we talked to earlier tonight, he came in a car full of people. He lives in San Bernardino. So obviously these people were coming in from outside of Santa Monica with the goal of being opportunists and just getting what they could when the opportunity was there.
So hard to watch. Bill Melugin, thank you for your continued excellent work, and to your photographer, Sam Dubin, for his excellent work as well. We talked earlier today with LA Congresswoman Karen Bass during our coverage. She says that those looters that Bill just talked about really have nothing to do with demanding justice for George Floyd.
It absolutely breaks my heart, because I think the issues that people are so outraged about need to be addressed, but committing the violence and looting totally changes the subject. And then what we focus on is the violence. But I will suggest, though, that many of the people that participate in the violence, I'm not sure they're really demonstrators. I'm not sure they care a lick about George Floyd. I think that when people see protests like this happen, that there's opportunists. They see an opportunity. They know they can go do something because the law is not being enforced in the same way. So I think it is really important to separate the criminal activity from the people who have legitimate grief. Now, those people who really are protesting that then resort to violence, you know, they are totally changing the subject and hurting the very cause that they say they believe in.
Karen Bass earlier today.
All right, we are getting some information about looting happening in Compton. I'm in touch with Councilman Galvan, who's talking about one of the businesses there. I believe it is the T-Mobile store that has been broken into and burglarized. We're trying to get some more information as to what's going on in that area. But here at this hour at 11:28 at night, that's the information we're getting out of Compton.
And we're also getting word about some looting in the Inland Empire, and we hope to have more on that in just a few moments.
All right, Los Angeles City civil rights attorney Leo Terrell has been on Fox 11 many times to discuss so many legal topics over the past few years. He says this weekend's looting hits him on a personal level.
Let me be very clear right up front. There was a tragic killing in Minnesota of a black man, George Floyd. I've been a civil rights attorney for 25 years. It's horrific. The one officer has been arrested and now facing murder charges. Notwithstanding that horrible incident in Minnesota, what hurts me and what pains me is the looting and rioting going on under the pretext of protesting the death of George Floyd. I saw the riots in '65. You're right, I was 10 years old. The Rodney King riots. What makes this so tragic is that we haven't learned anything. Burning down buildings do not resolve issues. We have to eliminate the system that creates police misconduct.
All right, it is now approaching 11:30. I'm Alex Michelson.
And I'm Christine Devine. As we continue on, here's what's going on right now at 11:30 p.m. A curfew for LA County is in effect. There has been widespread looting in LA County, and we've been covering some of those locations, as well as LA County in Long Beach as well, where there's been a fire, active fire there in Long Beach. There have also been those peaceful protests throughout the day, and sadly, those have been overshadowed by the looting, the destruction, the damage. We've seen some protesters attempting to protect businesses that they don't even own from looters. And we want to remind you that Good Day LA is live at 4 a.m. with the very latest overnight developments.
So here's some new video. This is what I was just talking about. Looting in Riverside County tonight. We haven't talked about Riverside County much tonight. Unfortunately, they are now the victim of some of this too. This is also in San Bernardino. We've got some video of people that are targeting stores. Fires lit at a Walgreens. We saw windows broken. People went through the store, taking whatever they wanted. So this is the first time we're seeing this video. It sounds like we have problems with looting in both Riverside and San Bernardino County. People just taking whatever they want from this store here.
Wow. This is a difficult video to watch, and you see here people with no masks on. You visibly see them right there as we are watching looting happening. I'm trying to get some video to come in from the Compton situation where Councilman Isaac Galvan was talking to us about the looting at the T-Mobile there at Long Beach and Rosecrans. And you know, I've covered a lot of stories in Compton, and they were so proud of the growth of Compton, the building in Compton, the businesses, the major chains coming into Compton as well. And so I'm sure there's devastation at the thought of looting there and destruction in their city, in their community.
Yeah.
All right, a tense situation in downtown LA continues as police track down and arrest anyone violating the curfew. Christina Gonzalez has been covering the events all day. Christina?
Yes, when I was telling you about just how much safety there is around City Hall, if we can go to the video we just were able to send you, if anybody leaves anything, for example, in Grant Park, what you're looking at, hopefully, is officers in protective gear checking it. Like I had not a complete hazmat suit, but definitely the outfits to protect themselves. In this case, it was water bottles. We have seen them doing this with backpacks or anything left behind. And what they're looking for, obviously, possible explosives, things left behind. As some of the protesters have taken off, as it were, some of them have left things behind. And what that has set up is a whole second deployment of people to check if the stuff in question is possibly dangerous, if something was left behind. In this case, it was water bottles. They did take them with them. At this point, they haven't closed off the park, and we are getting no indication that they have found anything dangerous at all. But again, it is the kind of thing that is going to be going into the night as they look around and they find things that have been left behind by protesters. Another update that I want to talk to you about, I just got this from the Superior Court, Los Angeles Superior Court, announcing that tomorrow, out of an abundance of caution, they are going to close all the courthouses tomorrow to protect the safety of the public. I am reading that from a note sent to me from the presiding judge. Again, Los Angeles Superior Court courthouses, any offices that were actually open, any courtrooms that were actually open with the COVID thing, all of it will be closed tomorrow out of caution because of the situation that is happening. I'm Christina Gonzalez, live in downtown Los Angeles. Back to you guys.
Christina, you have been on the streets of Los Angeles for so many years, covering so many stories in depth. Take us back in time, if you could, to the 1992 riots. And I keep going back to that because we haven't seen anything like this since then in our city here. No. With the social media, what are you seeing from the people you're seeing in downtown LA when it comes to people wanting to get that photo, that video, that selfie?
You know, it's interesting because I think social media has played such a huge part in this particular situation. First of all, in the deployment of the people, I think half of the people arriving at some of these looting locations, at some of the protests even, is by word of mouth, social media. We're already getting and looking into things about possible looting tomorrow at such place. Let's gather over here, bring the tools. So that's one end of it. On the other end of it, it is interesting how many people have their blogs and they're going live. As I'm sitting here doing interviews today, there are 3 people in the middle of all this saying, oh, would you talk for my blog? Oh, let's go live with you. We never had that before. What happens with that, though, that is really interesting is that when Metro, like they stepped in when they were doing the arrest and they decided to tell media, move back, some of those people who didn't have media passes ended up getting arrested as well. So that is a whole other thing that is happening at the same time. So yeah, you're right, Christine. It's a whole new protest era, a social media protest area. And I think they're going to be looking into the communication between a lot of people on this one.
That's interesting. About the blogs, too. Christine and I were both out at the fire in downtown LA about a week ago, and some young men from China came up and said, hey, we've got a blog. Can we talk about it? So, yeah, you're right. Things have changed for sure, Christina. Thank you.
But interesting to hear that those people got arrested in that situation. Christina, thank you. Again, a reminder of the breaking news that we've just found out about. There has been an officer-involved shooting in the area of Melrose Avenue and North Wilton Place. This is in Los Angeles, an LAPD officer-involved shooting. We're not sure about the condition of the person that has been shot or the circumstances that led to that, but we will hopefully get more information on that soon.
Widespread looting, fires, mobs of vandals have taken over what started out as a day of peaceful protest.
Coco McAvoy has been following it all through the streets of Santa Monica. She continues her work here at 11:36 p.m. Coco.
Good evening. So we're now here at Santa Monica and 5th Street, and there's a lot of work going on here. There's a team of people that are now boarding up outside of Citibank. So you can see all of this plywood. This is following the amount of looting that was happening at stores earlier today. You can see this man here with some plywood. He's going to be measuring it, of course, just to get this place all boarded up because, of course, you want to protect a place like Citibank. We also saw a credit union across the street that was doing the same thing, and they also had security guards outside of their credit union just to make sure that no one could come inside and infiltrate. So as you're looking at here, you're seeing this man is boarding up the windows here as a preventative measure to make sure people cannot loot inside of this Citibank here. But we're going to keep walking this way. You can see that there are fire trucks in the distance as well. Now, we don't know exactly what they're responding to, but it's part of the police presence that we've seen out here. Again, this is the fire department specifically, though. We don't know if there was another fire or if hotspots started at some of the places that were set on fire. We know there were about 9 fires in Santa Monica today. We walked by one of the sites of the fires. It was a restaurant that was destroyed inside entirely, following a group of people going inside and setting it on fire. So again, you can see that there's no one in the streets. After the sheriff's department and a number of the other police departments started coming in here, people started clearing out. The peaceful protesters left, and the other group of people also left, the people who ended up looting and protesting. We're going to get out of the street here because there is one car coming down here. But for the most part, people have left here. Now, you can see across the street, though, this Union Bank has been tagged heavily. We're going to watch what we show you because there are some expletives on the building, but it just really shows you how this entire community of Santa Monica was really targeted tonight. Back to you.
Yeah. We see all that graffiti there, even behind you there, Coco. I can't imagine what residents might see when they wake up in the morning and normally would go for their morning coffee, for example, or for a walk on the beach there. Paint a picture for us, Coco, as to what residents will see.
I think it's going to be almost like an entirely different world for residents when they wake up. A lot of residents, though, have been watching from their buildings, from their homes, looking out the window. We've seen people shaking their heads. I spoke to a woman on the street who was telling me that she was, quote, heartbroken because this is where she lives. And she's going to wake up in the morning and come outside, like you said, what maybe would have normally been some type of coffee run or something. We are in a pandemic, but places were just starting to open up, and now they will be closed again. Now they'll be boarded up. So we don't know how long there'll be this heavy presence of police and fire. I'm going to let you listen in here. So again, a number of firefighters still out here on scene. That's Santa Monica Fire Department. We don't know where exactly they're headed, but we do know that there were 9 fires tonight. So there is a chance, of course, that there's a hot spot or something that they have to tend to. Some of these buildings are still smoking at this time. So it looks like, if I can see correctly, there are a group of firefighters down the street here, and they do have ladders. So I don't know if there's some type of fire going down there. We will go down there and investigate and throw it back to you.
All right, Coco, we'll give you a moment to move locations and try to figure out some more information about what's going on there. Clearly some sort of emergency underway now in the city of Santa Monica. And Christine, at this late hour, we're just hearing about a lot of different areas now dealing with their own problems.
Let's go back live to look at Long Beach. We actually have this video from this fire that we saw earlier today, actually. This is a suit, a men's suit business. And my friend Antonio messaged me and said he was a customer of this business. He had bought a suit to wear to his father's funeral at this business. He called it a family-owned business. And you think of the losses here. You know, we've heard repeatedly that people have said, well, it's insured, you'll rebuild. This is somebody's livelihood. They've probably put their heart and soul into this business. When it's family owned, sometimes you don't have the added wealth and protections that come with a corporate company, right. The backing of a big corporation. So you look at this here in Long Beach and you think of the loss here of a hope and a dream.
You do, and there's been some callousness with some of these looters that have suggested, well, you know, we're looting from a place that has insurance, so it doesn't matter. And to hear from two business owners who said, we don't have insurance. I mean, the one guy that Mario Ramirez interviewed on Melrose said, my dad's 81. It's a Doc Marten shoe store. I've been in that store. And he said this was my dad's everything, and they couldn't afford the insurance. He said that they were barely staying afloat as a business as it was. So that apparently isn't true, that people have insurance 100%, especially the mom and pop shops. Yet another reason why looting does not seem to be the answer. So, but looting continues not only here, but across the country as well. We want to take you live to Birmingham, Alabama, where we're getting pictures of some looting that is underway as well. Check this out, which is very late at night there, because they're 3 hours ahead of us. So this is approaching, what, approaching 3 o'clock in the morning there. You see these police that are on the move. Look at that tactical position. They're literally on the side of this vehicle as they move through the streets. We have been hearing about problems all over the country. Wow, there's some either fireworks or flashbang that just came from that police car. You know, we've been hearing about problems all over the country, especially problematic tonight in Washington, D.C., near the White House, where there was a fire at one of the most famous churches in the country, the St. John's Church, which is right across the street from the White House. Earlier, we were hearing reports that President Trump had to be taken to a bunker because the protest became so serious outside the White House. They literally turned off the lights at the White House, which many people have commented is a bit of a symbol for what has happened as President Trump chose not to address the nation today or go on camera at any point during the day. But we focus obviously so much on what's happening in Southern California because we are the local newscast for Southern California. But there's been widespread chaos throughout the country in so many American cities. Christine.
You have to wonder how long it's going to last. There was swift action in Minneapolis with the officer who put his knee on the neck of George Floyd, and George Floyd later died. That officer has been arrested. He has been charged, and still you have these continued protests. There's been calls for the other officers there at the scene, 3 of them, to be arrested. The court case itself is going to take time to play out, but here we are watching these protests, watching the anger of people in so many cities across our nation. And here we are on a Sunday night, almost midnight, which would normally be a very calm night here in Los Angeles. We seem to kind of be an early-to-bed city. And you have the quiet and calm tonight because of a curfew, not even the pandemic, because of a curfew.
Right, and it is approaching 2 o'clock in the morning there in Birmingham, Alabama, where fires continue in the streets. Such a tough night that I think will lead to a lot of questions about where we are as a society, what are our priorities as a society, how we can heal from this. And I don't think it's just going to be a question for political leaders. It'll be a question for religious leaders. It'll be a question for our cultural leaders. It's going to be interesting to know who is the leader that can speak out right now. Who is the figure that can help unify this country? Who is that person that can bring healing? Because clearly there's so much pain about issues of race, about issues of class, about issues of not feeling included, which is what you mentioned earlier tonight, Christine, of young people that feel very disenfranchised from the system. Not to mention the other problems and people that are really taking advantage of this, which is some of those Antifa protesters and some of the extremists who are just sort of professional agitators. But that is an element of it. But having seen the people that were looting live on the air, from Phil and Susan and Bobby D and other people that we've seen all weekend, that's not all of it. It's not just Antifa. It is people from our community that have made the decision to be a part of this looting.
Talking on social media here, texting with a young man who provides me with a lot of wisdom and guidance as to thoughts of young people. He's a young African-American man who I just really respect, and he says that a lot of the looting seems to be coordinated and thought out. He also says people need equality, but also is concerned that people need a place to work. He is concerned that with these businesses being destroyed, where do some people go for employment?
And we also don't know the extent to which, on that point, that coronavirus may have contributed to some of this, or at least the ferocity of this, because it is true that young people, many of whom have been told you cannot work for the last couple months, have been pent up, not allowed to go outside, allowed to go outside, but not allowed to work, not allowed to see their friends. And there is a desperation out of that in a moment in this country when you have 40 million people that are literally out of work, that may be adding to the intensity of this desperation.
Not even not allowed to work, some have lost their jobs. I remember right before some of the businesses closed up, I stopped by for a gelato. I was passing by a store, let's get a gelato because things were closing up. And the young man working there said, we're actually not going to be in business for any time soon because they couldn't get their product out of Europe because of the coronavirus. So then he messaged me on Instagram, because I didn't say Christine Devine, Fox 11 News, but he realized that later the next day that I was, the newscaster, and he sent me a note. And I also looked at his Instagram page, and he had now a GoFundMe page set up because he lost his job. So it's not just that people are going to, get to go back to work as things open up. Some people have lost their job.
And for a lot of these businesses that even are being allowed to reopen at 25% capacity, that means that they're going to have to maybe not bring back 75% of their employees. So Birmingham continues to be problematic. Santa Monica has been problematic. And I'm hearing, Coco, there may still be some looting going on in Santa Monica tonight.
So we moved closer to 4th Street in Santa Monica to ask the firefighters what was going on here, and they tell us that it was exactly what we thought. They're putting out hotspots here at Saki House. Now, that was a Japanese restaurant that has been set on fire, and the entire place is gutted. So you can only imagine what the owner of that restaurant is going through right now, seeing these images, knowing that it's still on fire, smoke is still billowing out of it. You can hear the sirens and the alarms, I should say, in the background. Firefighters tell me they don't know how long they'll be out here as they try to put out these hot spots. And then right across the street is REI that was also hit, and smoke was billowing out of that building as well. But if you take a look here, we'll be careful what we show, but every business on this side of the street and the other side of the street was hit, was tagged. And we're talking about another restaurant here, but also a nail shop and some real estate as well. On the other side of the street, it's the same deal, lots of tagging. So this area here was heavily impacted by the protests that turned into something else much earlier today. So this place was set on fire earlier in the afternoon, And still here, close to midnight, firefighters are having to fight the fire inside of Saki House. Back to you.
It's so tough to see. I mean, I love Saki House. I've been there many times for parties going out in the Santa Monica area. And you think of all the employees that work there that have been out of work, Christine and Coco, for the last several months because of coronavirus.
Yeah.
One of so many restaurants that were looking forward to reopening. LA County just getting that clearance to reopen this weekend. It's supposed to be the first weekend that restaurants like Saki House were supposed to be able to be back open for dine-in service, and instead now all of those people will continue to be out of work.
And if you think back, let me take you back a week ago, where so many were thinking about the day that restaurants were opening for dine-in with caution. But how many of us thought about, well, maybe we'll go to this favorite spot or check out this favorite spot, because we've only been able to do the curbside. And if you wanted to support your favorite restaurant or your favorite business, you've tried to do the takeout, but to actually go in, like today, I went in to see, get my dogs groomed and washed, and I was so excited to see that the guys at Petco were back and to see them get to work and be employed. And that was going to be the situation, I think, for some restaurants too. And now you have this situation.
Yeah, and instead of going out for dinner in Santa Monica, which is the home of so many great restaurants, there was a 4 p.m. curfew. And you literally were not allowed to leave your house. Yeah. So tough, because as those looters that came in and did this move on, and they go to whatever they do next, those folks, the folks that work at Saki House, the folks that own Saki House, are going to be impacted for months and months and months by those quick actions tonight. And you think about all of the individual stories in all the different communities because of this mob mentality that has taken over. It's really so unfortunate.
I think of the people who work at the restaurants. We're talking servers, we're talking valet people, we're talking dishwashers, we're talking cooks, we're talking owners. So it really does affect a lot of people. When you think of the Saki House restaurant, you think of sushi, but I'm thinking of the person who, like I said, is washing the dishes, who is cleaning the restaurant, who is working as a server. And for those people to not have a job because of this, they must be thinking, what kind of, can't get a break here. I mean, coronavirus set them back. Some restaurants saying they might not even be able to come back. And now you have something like this.
And you wonder if some of these regulations on some of these places may be eased in the wake of this. I mean, coronavirus regulations were going to be so intense when you see people basically flouting all of that. How that's going to impact it too, and just the questions about how we're going to literally be able to afford to rebuild. Will Congress be able to step in? Will FEMA step in? Do we change, literally start printing more money in Washington, D.C.? Because the economic need was great. I mean, California going into this, there was an expected $54 billion deficit before this weekend. And now you think of the economic toll that, and that entire domino effect that we were just talking about with these restaurants, and all those people that now all of a sudden have to file for unemployment and all of a sudden need help and all of a sudden aren't spending the money that they would have made working at Saki House to go buy groceries or go to another restaurant. And you think about that compounded throughout all of, not only Southern California, but for the entire country and all of the cities that are feeling this. You know, how are we going to afford this?
Yeah. Well, we had quite a conversation earlier with the chief of police in Long Beach. Robert Luna was generous enough to take time to talk with us on phone about the looting that we saw on our Fox 11 camera.
Yeah.
At that time, we saw that there was no police presence. They did come in eventually and restore order and take. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and it was a bit of a controversial conversation. I've gotten a lot of feedback, probably more on this than probably anything I've done before. And there was I think some increased emotions during this conversation because we had just been watching, 25 minutes of looting live on the air with no police in sight. And in the middle of that, we got on the phone with the chief of police for Long Beach. He said he did not have access to a TV screen, but I think everybody's emotions were heightened at that moment. So when you watch this, have that context in mind.
The Long Beach Police Department is out here. We are in multiple places in the city. Yes, we have a significant challenge tonight, but you know what? Our police officers and the many other police officers that have come into the city of Long Beach are going to be strong tonight, and they're going to get the job done. And we're going to be fine. But as you see with other cities...
Is this getting the job done, what we're looking at right now?
I'm sorry?
Is this what we're looking at? People literally breaking into a store and taking whatever they want. Is that getting the job done?
Well, I'm not sitting in front of a television at this second because I moved away from the command post to talk to all of you. But anytime you see anybody looting, that's a criminal act.
What is the strategy of the Long Beach Police Department as we've seen this looting?
It's to try and stop it and make arrests whenever we can.
Do you have enough officers to actually stop this as we watch multiple different locations where this looting happens with no officers anywhere in sight? We saw in Santa Monica the same thing happen. The National Guard pulled up 4 hours later after everything was already done. Do you have the resources to meet this actual challenge that we're faced with right now?
Well, I believe we do have enough officers on the street, and we're getting more as we're speaking. So we will be able to handle this.
How is that true, though? I mean, you got to. That doesn't match the reality that we're seeing right now.
You know what? I'm not looking at it, and I think it's unfair that you're sitting here. You've asked me the same question over and over. We've got people on the way. It's unacceptable, and I don't think you asking the question over and over is going to make it any better. We're going to get people out there, make sure that we can absolutely handle it. And it is. I could tell you're frustrated, I'm frustrated, and we'll get people out there and hopefully make as many arrests as we can as soon as possible.
So I just want to make something clear. We are supportive of the tough work that the police do. I think some of the frustration there was he was painting a picture of a reality that was not the reality that we were seeing. It was a little bit challenging because the fact that he did not have a monitor and wasn't seeing the images that we were seeing. But he was talking about, a lot of the success that was happening as we were literally watching images of the opposite of what he was saying. It has been a tough night for police who have done a lot of good work and done the best that they can in a lot of places, and it's an overwhelming night because in a lot of areas there just have not been enough police. And when you see, like in Santa Monica now, when there are more police there, they're able to do things and get a hold of it. That was just a particular moment of chaos that we were talking to him during.
Well, we did see the picture in Santa Monica change when they did get some backup there. The LA County Sheriff's Department came in. In fact, Sheriff Alex Villanueva was there on the ground in Santa Monica in support. They had this big truck with a water cannon on top of it and actually used that maybe just once to have protesters disperse, to push them back. And then you saw the National Guard vehicles move in. And that's really quite a picture to see the National Guard on our streets in Santa Monica.
And as we wrap things up, we just want to mention one more time where we believe that there's still problems underway right now, which is in the Inland Empire. We've been talking so much about LA County and Orange County, but we have seen looting. This is some new video from San Bernardino tonight, where people targeting stores, a restaurant, fires lit, Walgreens, windows broken, people going through the store, taking whatever they wanted. So that will be a part, I'm sure, of Good Day LA's coverage tomorrow at 4 a.m. as well.
Boy, that video is something there. I just want to finish up, though, quickly on the Long Beach situation. They did hold a news conference shortly after our phone call there, where we heard from the mayor, we heard from the fire department, we heard from the police chief, Robert Luna, there, who did say they had then called in for mutual support, mutual aid, that means from other agencies to come in, and they did call in the National Guard to assist. So it's happening in so many communities. You see this right here in San Bernardino. I'm talking too about the Compton break-in also. So we're continuing to watch this, and we'll of course have coverage on Good Day LA at 4 a.m. For Alex Michelson, I'm Christine Devine. We thank you so much for watching tonight.
It has been such a consequential day. We appreciate you being here for our 12 hours of coverage. We will break in overnight if needed. And a big thank you to all of our crews in the field who have done such heroic work all day long. Have a good evening, and we hope that you're able to stay safe.
Heroes.
This weekend on Extra, America loves Archie. Our new interview with the man who stole Simon's heart, and ours too.
It's so overwhelming.
How watching AGT from prison kept him going all those years, and the surprise call he got from Sir Elton John.
It's like a dream.
Lady Gaga, raw and emotional as she talks about battling her demons.
I just started to lean into my mental issues.
She's unbelievably revealing.
Doesn't matter how rich you are, successful you are.
Drinking and